Welcome to Heroes Have Wings, the podcast that gives a voice to the unsung heroes of Army aviation. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. For the Army aviators, crew chiefs, and flight medics who put it all on the line in the heat of battle, this is their opportunity to share untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. From their beginnings to the battlefield, you hear about their hardships, the moments of doubt, and how they overcame impossible odds to save lives. These warriors didn't just fight for survival, they put others above themselves, embodying the true spirit of heroism and selfless service. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Heroes Have Wings. Today's guest, Jon King, is a force to be reckoned with, a man who's rewritten the rulebook of what's possible. From growing up in a small two-bedroom house in Arkansas to serving in both the Air Force and the Army, Jon's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. With over 2 decades, he mastered the skies as a Blackhawk pilot, completed 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan, and earned honors like the Polish Army Medal for his incredible missions. Now an entrepreneur, Jon is the founder of the Eagle Rising Foundation, a mentor, a business owner, and even a reality TV star on the Blox. His mission is clear: empower others to break boundaries, embrace challenges, and never take no for an answer. Jon King, welcome to Heroes Have Wings.
Hey, man. Thanks for the crazy intro. Never heard it put quite that way, so it's interesting to hear other people's perspective on my life and where I'm at. So thank you for that.
Man, you're welcome, man. I'm excited that you're here today. I haven't seen you in 12 years, maybe?
At least, yeah. It's been a minute.
Some time.
We were running around at Campbell.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with quick hits, all right? Rapid fire, two things. You just pick one of them.
Okay.
Coffee, energy drinks.
Coffee.
Country life, city living.
Country all day long.
Summer heat, winter cold.
Summer all day.
Movies or books.
Movies.
Dogs or cats.
Dogs.
Beach vacation, mountain retreat.
Beach.
Wake up early, stay up late.
Both.
I feel you on that. You're an entrepreneur, man. Action movies or comedies.
Ooh, tough one. I'm going to go with comedies.
Okay. Camping or road trip.
Ooh, another good one. I'm going to go camping. I do that a little more often.
Texting or calling.
It depends on the moment, but overall, I'd say I'd prefer a phone call.
Yeah, me too, man. Well, like I said, brother, I'm happy to have you today on Heroes Have Wings, and we're going to tell the whole world your story, because there's some things about you I didn't even know. For example, I didn't know you were in the Air Force for as long as you were. I didn't even know you were in the Air Force. So we're going to get to that. Hey, I like all the plaques in the background. You're mirroring me back here. So
yes, sir.
Let's get to it, man. You grew up in Arkansas, small house. How was your family dynamic growing up?
Dude, it was fun. You know, I had 2 older brothers. One was 4 years older than me. One was 18 months older than me. So we might as well have been twins at times, just by virtue of how much we butted heads growing up. If you can imagine that, 3 young men in a small space. You make it work at the end of the day. But overall, man, I learned work ethic. I learned drive. I learned determination. I learned what right looked like. I learned all the positive things that you can imagine growing up. Also had a lot of the negative as well. You know, nobody's life's perfect. Nobody's got the perfect home life and things like that. So we had our own struggles. My parents did the best they could with what they had over the years, and ultimately, you know, pushed us to really drive beyond just what was available there in Central Arkansas at the time. You know, you're talking mid-90s whenever I graduated. So, you know, they've always wanted more for us in what we've done in life, and always been our champions at the end of the day. So for that fact, I'm forever grateful for it, for the way that I grew up. I wouldn't change it. You know, as they say, the things you go through in life make you the person that you are. So if we were to go back and change anything, I wouldn't be who I am.
Correct.
And At this point in life, overall, I kind of like where I'm at and who I am and what I'm able to do.
Your mom and dad, they still together?
No, they've been apart for shit, that's just 30 years, probably, give or take. Probably 25. They did the run where they did, I think it was 15 years, got divorced for a year, went back together for about 4 years, made it to about 20 years total, and then finally separated. You know, some people are just oil and water. And at the end of the day, they were better off apart than they were together. And my dad's doing his thing in northern Arkansas. My mom, we just got her moved out from Arkansas over here to Alabama on a little piece of property I got. She built her new house and whatnot. So
okay,
able to hang out with her, which is kind of cool. It's a drastic difference of the last 25 years that I've spent traveling.
Yeah. So were they together while you were growing up with your brothers?
My oldest brother, and we'll talk about him a little later, but so he's my half brother. So he was about 4 years older than me, and then my dad adopted him when he was a year, I believe, and raised him pretty much as his own. And then yeah, I think I was probably 15 or 16 when they first split for the first time. And then, like I said, that made it till about 20 years old, 20. So I was probably, I don't know, 18, whatever the math works out for all that. But yeah, for the most part, starting out, you know, they were together and we made it quite a long ways together as a single unit. But like most of America, man, at a certain point, they decided it was better to do it apart and chose their path. And it is what it is. You know what I mean? I look at it as they did their job. They got us through high school. They got us being positive members of society. And now it's their turn to go live their life how they want from that perspective. So
how was the family dynamic?
It was dynamic. When you talk about oil and water, you know, and you join the military, so you have an understanding of what I'm about to say when it comes to, we don't join the military a lot of times for it being the only option or the best option at times. You know, I ended up with a full ride to college, realized based on going and partying with my brother one weekend when I was a senior that I needed more structure. So, you know, that played a factor into it, and just getting out of where I was at and the situation. And, you know, when you talk about oil and water, you can imagine the dynamics. I don't want to delve too deep, but you can imagine that there weren't always good times, and it wasn't all roses, just as you can imagine. Other stuff that I can get into, you know, as the story unfolds. But at the end of the day, I think they were great parents. They did with what they had, and I've seen domestic violence. I've been part of it. You know, I watched both my brothers call my dad out, just like you would expect to growing men to do, and challenge him at times. And I learned I don't like getting in fights, and I don't like losing. So I basically sit back, shut up, and watched and learned. And there came a time where I had to confront my dad one time, and basically told him he was leaving his own house. And that's not something you do lightheartedly, much less as a 16, 17-year-old young man, because of the dynamic that was going on. And it was not healthy for either one of them at the time. And I do have one kind of funny story on that, because my granddad, my mom's dad, was sitting in the restaurant one morning, and they would all go in there and do their old men conversations and politics and all that jazz. And at the time, my dad actually owned it. He'd purchased it from his parents. And so they're sitting there doing breakfast, and my dad walks behind him, and my granddad's like, yeah, I ain't the ones telling you how they're going to whoop your ass. You got to worry about it. It's the ones sitting back plotting how they're going to do it that you do. And he just kind of grinned, you know, and of course my dad heard him, and that was all during that dynamic time and everything. But it's just one of those funny stories that I carry with me through life of, you don't always need to run your mouth. Sometimes you need to just sit back and watch stuff unfold and be ready for when it does.
Yeah. How was your relationship with your brothers? Because just so you know, I have a brother. He's 10 and a half months older than me. So they called us the Irish twins. We even look alike. And I'm wondering, I knew how my life was growing up with my brother. He was pretty much my best friend and my road dog. And man, we did everything together. How was it with your brothers?
We were tight growing up early on in life. You know, you'd live in the same room with two individuals that, you know, for years on end, you got to get close or you fall completely apart. But yeah, we were definitely close growing up. Me and my one brother tagged along a little more together than our older brother did from that perspective. And then, you know, he kind of went out and did his best with what he had, given what he was given in life. He definitely started out harder than most. Obviously, being adopted at a year old by my dad, and then go through life. The fact that he was deaf in one ear, blind, partially blind in one eye, and the struggles that he had with dealing with that and doing things in life. Whereas my brother and I, you know, we took a slightly different path in high school, and you know, my mom focused on getting us in the band at 6th grade and really pushing that kind of focus and drive. And then ultimately, you know, I went on to get a college scholarship. My brother Matt ended up getting one, full ride and everything. So we ended up going out, and I joined the Air Force first because I started out, like I told you, I went to party with my brother and realized I needed a little more structure. So at first I went to the Navy recruiter, and I was on board with that to do the nuclear sub engineer program until they said I had to sit under ice for 6 months. And I was like, nope, I'm out. So ended up going to the Air Force and let them pick a job for me, kind of deal. But
who are some of the biggest influences in your life as a young child?
I'd definitely say my mom's dad, and I'm going to turn the camera just so you can kind of see, and then I'll turn it back to myself. But I've got a calendar up with me, him, and my son on my wall from back in the day where we're sitting there. And I'm just sitting there with him getting life advice at the end of the day. I've got a brand new son. Don't really know what the hell I'm doing, struggling in life. And he was always that individual that I could go to and sit down and get that no bullshit. Here you go. There was no filter, and, you know, and gave it to you straight, as you would hope a mentor would do. And then after graduating, getting up off it, the next gentleman that I would name from that aspect would be my father-in-law, my wife's dad, who was a mentor for me. After I, you know, got out of the house, got into my career and things like that, he ended up being a mentor for me for 20 plus years over the years. And then obviously the given is my dad, which most people would name first. Early on, absolutely. That man, his work ethic, his drive, his determination is something I always watched. You know, being young, you don't always see things as clearly as you do once you become an adult and you actually see some of the behind the curtain stuff, and you're like, dang, wow. Like, I wouldn't have put up with that. And, you know, things like that. And you learn different things about people as you get a little older and gain up different.
I was going to ask you that. You mentioned earlier, you know, the domestic stuff and, you know, the rocky relationship, but being a man now and knowing your dad and coming back as an adult and seeing like the things he may have dealt with, did it help you understand a little bit better? Or I'm not advocating domestic violence at all. I want everybody to know that, but
no, absolutely not. And so here's the deal. It wasn't just him on that domestic violence thing. I don't want people to think that he was the person that engaged it. Like it was, if you could imagine even money on fist throwing and anger and just fiery mad. Like my mom might weigh 85 pounds soaking wet right now. She's slowly getting healthier. She had a health episode not too long, a couple of years ago, that she's still fighting through. But anyways, she's a pistol, dude. Like she would throw out just as much as she ever gave. And I'm not condoning it, right? I don't believe that that's okay at all. That said, I want people to understand it's not always a male-female violence thing. It completely can be the other way around. And I mean, my uncle's buddy got popped in the head one time by his wife with a skillet because he came in like drunk as shit, you know. So it's not just a male-female thing or anything like that. To me, domestic violence in and of itself is just not good. Like, separate, get apart, do your thing, live your life, the best life that you could do. The toxic shit, life's too short for all that, man. That's one thing I definitely learned watching them and doing my life. And, you know, my wife and I have been together since 98, been married since 02.
Damn, let's go.
Every day's a struggle. Every day's a challenge. Every day's fun. Every day's pissed off. I mean, you have every day filled with every emotion. But at the end of the day, you just determine whether it's worth it or not. You know, nobody said marriage was easy. Nobody said life was easy from that perspective. So I've taken the things that I went through in my early life, things that I went through when I joined the Air Force all the way through the Army. And I've applied those different things to my life and the raising of my children. I always give people the example of, I don't care if you grew up rich or poor, you will have the same example of what your success in life can look like. And I say that because if you grow up poor, you got a perfect example of what it takes to get poor. And I say that very bluntly, right? In the same hand, if you grow up rich, you have the exact example of how it takes to get rich. Follow the pattern of the people in front of you, and you will end up in that result. That said, if you're poor, do the opposite of what they did to get poor. Pretty good odds you'll be rich, or at least richer in life. And then flip that if you grow up rich and I'm talking monetary. I'm not talking richness of life. That's a totally different story that we can hop on. And I'll jump on that bandwagon. But at the end of the day, you know, if you got money and you mess around, you won't have money very long, you know? So I never like excuses of, I had it all this. I don't care. What did you do based off of that? What did you do to change your situation? What did you do to proactively engage with others to maybe make their life better that will in turn enrich your life? I tell people all the time, I'm the greediest motherfucker out there, pardon my language. And they look at me and they're like, John, you do this, you help so-and-so, you do this. I said, yeah, it's because I'm selfish. I love helping people and I love the result of that and seeing them smile and seeing them succeed. And that gives me more price in life than any dollar value I've ever seen in my entire life, from that perspective, you know, and it really is a greed thing. Like I really am greedy in the fact I love seeing people succeed. And you can see me right now, I start getting passionate about it. Like I absolutely love it and I geek out on it and it's fun and that's the way that I want to live my life moving forward. And that's kind of what's driven me the last a little over 2 years now.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to that. There's a trend I see with all the guys and gals that I get on Heroes Have Wings. We have a high desire to serve other people, man. And we're all very passionate. Hell, to be in the Army and do the line of work that we did for so long, you have to have that characteristic, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing all day. We're putting ourselves in harm's way to help others. But I do agree with you. I said that I was recording a podcast a few days ago and I mentioned that. I said, it doesn't matter how you were born, your circumstances, your gender, your race, none of that stuff. None of that matters. You can still be successful. Now, I will always say this. Will some people have more obstacles than others?
100%.
Yes. I firmly believe that. But is it undoable? No, it's going to be hard. Like you said, life is hard. Being married's hard. Just everything is hard. But you got to have that dog and you got to continue to fight.
Yeah.
Having those 3 men in your life that help mentor you and make you the man you are today, how important was that to you now that I'm not sure how old's your oldest child?
So my son just turned 19. He's actually he's enrolling today in automotive at the local community college. So that's a cool thing as a dad.
Yeah, that's great. So how important were those 3 mentors in your life?
Oh, huge, dude. And part of that is they taught me not to have just a single mentor. You know, when you hear the term mentor, people think, oh, I need one person that's going to be my go-to that has all the answers. No. Yes, absolutely. Start with one. Got it. Go on beyond that, right? Because everybody has something different to teach and educate you on. And sometimes it's stuff you ask about. Sometimes it's you pick up just by virtue of being around them and seeing how they engage and how they enact. And then others are just subtle nuances in the fact that you don't even realize you're doing it. And then all of a sudden you look over and you're mirroring some of the things that your mentors are doing in a successful way. You know, whether that's people engagement, writing style, leverage of technology, whatever the case may be. I encourage people to get all ages of mentors as well. I got a young man that's one of my mentors. He's 19 years old. Nick Lauer is his name. He's out in Nashville, killing it. He's doing all sorts of stuff. He started his own company at 17 or 18. Killed $100,000 in gross revenue the first year by himself at 18 years old. And he's like, John, you're doing this, you got this. And why would you want me as your mentor? I said, dude, you're 19. You had $100,000 a year last year. I said, yeah, I got a lot to learn. I said, I didn't do that at 19. I'm 46 now and on my entrepreneurial journey. I was like, you're 20 years ahead of me in the game as far as that goes. So absolutely, I'd love to have you as a mentor and learn from you. And ideally, I'll be able to share that knowledge on to others and bring people into your network that can help you as a young man to better establish your future.
And I want people to understand what John just said. 19, he profited $100,000 in a year. Him and I being both entrepreneurs, making $100,000 your first year out the gate, that's very commendable. Very, very, very commendable. And doing it at 19, yeah, I see why you took him on as a mentor and learn from him, because
Yeah,
I feel we could learn from everybody. Everybody I meet, I try to learn something, and I'm very similar to you. This is why another reason why I started Heroes Have Wings, because I love to hear people's story, and I could learn from you. Everybody that comes on to this show, I could learn from, because I'm just a sponge. I'm trying to make my life better, make your life better, and just we all grow together. And it sounds corny, but we'll be this happy kumbaya growing family, right? Where we can all do great things in life.
for all the people that are probably rolling their eyes right now with that statement about kumbaya and happy family stuff. Because I believe that, right? I believe in our building our base stronger so that our overall community, family, whatever can be better, right? So the analogy I started using was everybody can imagine a table in the middle of a room with a plate of food on it. Then imagine a clock on the wall that all you've been told is you haven't eaten for 3 weeks. When the clock starts, you go eat. Well, imagine what happens. Everybody runs at the table when the clock goes off. They're all starving, so they're scrambling to get food. There's food that goes on the table, on the floor. We'll all agree that some people eat very well. Some people won't eat as well. At the end of the day, there's a lot of waste and a lot of things that went poorly. So now, instead of that, I'm going to add a few things right before that clock goes off. I'm going to look around the room. I'm going to identify, we're going to say there's 6 people in the room. One likes steak, one likes chicken, one likes pork, one likes green beans, one likes mashed potatoes and gravy. That's all on that plate. The other part I'm going to tell you is there's plenty enough for you to get all that you want on that plate. Now, click the button. Start the clock. What happens? People don't scramble to the table. Why? Because they've got the information and know that they're going to eat enough, right? So now they all walk up to the table. They get what they want. They get their complete fill. And guess what? There's still left on the table, or still food left on the plate. Everybody's gotten as much as they want. And again, it's about as much as they want. It's not, oh, this person ate all this and I only got this. No, you got as much as you want and you were good. Same person with here. Yeah, they ate twice as much as you. Doesn't matter. They got what they wanted. You got what you wanted. There's leftover. So now we are able to invite others in to eat with us. Whereas before we couldn't. We all scrambled to save our own souls and we lost a bunch of food on the floor and nobody ate as well. But when we walked up as a community, we all engaged together. We realized, hey, there's plenty to go around. And oh, by the way, we can invite others outside of our community in to help them. So by doing that slightly little change in our attitude and our engagement with others, I believe that we could build our family stronger, we could build our community stronger, we can build our country stronger, and ultimately the world. You know, I'm a realist optimist in that, right? I'm not ignorant to the fact we'll never see kumbaya as a world. Not in my lifetime.
Correct.
That said, doesn't mean we can't fucking do it within our own family and our own communities as best we can every day and engage people with that manner. There's no reason to be an asshole. At the end of the day, they just be kind and start there.
No, I get you, man, because the biggest thing is communication. If we talk to each other instead of basing things off of, you know, someone looking a certain way, or you just assume that somebody's an asshole or whatever the case may be. If you just take time, like you said, kindness, just greet somebody with a smile. Hey, how are you doing? And bam, you wouldn't realize how much that'll trigger somebody's brain for kindness.
100%.
And next thing you know, you just made a friend. That's simple.
Yep.
You know, I have this philosophy for everyone. I owned my businesses when I was in the Army. When you come to me, the first thing you should say to me is give me a pleasantry like, hey, good morning, Jason, or hey, how are you doing? Not just start demanding things, because it sets the tone. It sets the wrong tone right out of the gate.
Right.
So I always tell everybody, when I'm calling people, the customer service people, hey, how are you doing? They're like, I'm doing great. How are you? I'm excellent. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
But we already set the tone. And this is like you said, people just communicate with each other. I do choose kindness every day because it does take you do have to make that decision every day. Am I going to be kind or am I going to be an asshole? When you made that decision to join the Air Force, I know you went to hang out with your brother. You realized you needed more structure. What was that decision like, and how did that go when you told your parents? Because hell, You're one of the first people I met that had a full scholarship to college and said, I ain't doing that shit. I'm gonna go to the military. So what was that like?
They didn't mind it, believe it or not. Like, I'm not sure my dad was a big fan. He was in the Army for a little bit, and they came to an agreement that he didn't need to be in the Army, and he agreed. So, fast forward over the years, I think they've gained a respect for my decisions and the life that it's provided for me and my family, and ultimately they're proud. Going to the Air Force and having my dad there when I picked my job was a pretty cool, surreal moment. I'm thinking back 25, 26 years ago now, but just a surreal moment, and getting the book handed to you and go, all right, pick a job.
Why the Air Force?
So I went to the Navy first, and was going to look at the nuclear sub program, because back in the mid 90s, getting out after 4 years, $60,000 a year for a nuclear engineered thing was good money. So went and talked to them and was on board until they said, you got to spend 6 months under the polar ice caps. And I was like, nope, I'm out. I ain't doing it. So the next one was, I didn't want to do the Navy, didn't want to do the Army, and I knew I wasn't going to make it in the Marines because I don't have the mentality. I've got a couple of uncles that were Marines and whatnot. So it's like, why not try the Air Force? Everything I'd heard about it was, better off professional wise, and just the view it had back in the day for where I was at. So that's where I ended up. And when it came to the job, and the book I was telling you, I ended up picking Command and Control Communications and Navigation Systems Apprentice. And the reason I picked that job is because, one, it was a long-ass name. It was the longest one in the book. I asked the recruiter what it was about, and he's like, I don't know. It's some new career field. And I was like, cool, let's give it a try. Found out later it was just a combination of two other career fields that they smushed together. But yeah, that's what ultimately led me to Offutt, and had a great trip up from Biloxi, leaving out of tech school, got to Kansas City, and my truck broke down. So that was great.
Layman terms, what was your job title for the normal civilian, so we could understand what that was?
So it boiled down to a blend of communications and navigation. So any of the front end equipment on the front of the plane that handles communications or navigations, we handle with doing, for lack of better words, the box swapping of the equipment. If something went bad, we would troubleshoot it and replace the boxes. And then ultimately for me, after tech school and got stationed at Offutt, I transitioned to what they call airborne communications under the E4, which took me from the technical side of the troubleshooting and all that to more the operator side. So I ended up spending the majority of my time working as a secure communications operator. So if you can imagine, back in the day, having the old push button switchboards of connecting calls and things like that, working over different radio systems from the different bands of UHF, VHF, Milstar, SATCOM, fill in the blank of any way to talk in the world. We had it kind of deal. So really became more of an operator than the technical side and the piece of that. So
how similar was that job to an avionics person in the Army?
Identical in its own right. When you start talking about it at that level, it's all the same from that perspective. They just call it a different name.
So where'd you go to basic at?
San Antonio, Texas. I actually went back for the first time in 20 plus years. I went back for a work gig, and it was kind of crazy to see it that many years later and not recognize a thing.
How was basic training for you? Was it hard, easy?
I won't say it was easy. I remember waking up, a couple of nights in going, and why am I here? What did I do? Transition to me being me, and I like to have fun. I ended up figuring out where the candy machines were, and I may or may not have ventured down a few nights to accommodate my crew with some sweet treats during that time. But yeah, as far as that goes, I don't know, man. It's hard to say because I've gone through so many different schools since then in different ways and different manners, and they're all hard in their own right. Being young, being new, you don't know anything, and it's a great place to get a reset and a start fresh for everybody. And that's one thing I love about basic training across every service, is the fact that they're able to take and do something that nobody else in this world has been able to do, which is take a bunch of people from all over, works, wealth, and fill in the blank, And when they come out as even as you can possibly imagine. They understand. They have that single point of hatred of that situation, and we like to call it embracing the suck. As you know, there's certain times where you just, yep, it sucks. But at the end of the day, the person sitting to your left and right is why you're there at that point, and you have that to carry on in life and know that you've got that bond with those individuals throughout the rest of your life. And as you know, it carries across services as well. It's kind of like your brother. I can talk trash to my brother and he can whoop my butt back in the day all he wanted. Anybody else come in, that's a totally different story. We circle the wagons and we're all one from that perspective. So the fact that they're able to do that is pretty damn impressive to me, and I think we can all learn something from that as we move forward.
I think adversity brings unity.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things they teach in basic. They put us all in these hard, think about it, you got people all over the country. They pull them into these one location. We don't know each other. And then they just start with the basic stuff, yelling and push, but you see other people dealing with it. You're like, hey, I'm not alone. This is great. And it starts just bringing that unity together.
Yep.
How long was basic for you?
Ooh, now you're going to make me lie. It was stupid short. Was that 8 weeks back then? 6 weeks? 6 weeks?
I know my Army base was 9 weeks, but I don't know about
there you
the
go.
Air
So
Force.
Air Force would have been 6 plus what they call snowbird week or whatever the hell they called it back in the day. It was just like a half a week that they didn't count. I'm like, I'm here. Why does it not count? Like, I had hair yesterday. I don't have hair today, so it counts, right? But yeah, that was another.
So after basic, did you get any accolades in basic, like honor grad or any of those cool things?
No, dude, I took everything I had not to get washed out. What are you talking about? I told you, I'm the guy that pushes that limit. Like, oh, I know where the rules are, so let me stay right inside the rules to get by. And yeah, right before I graduated, I almost got recycled. My granddad come down with the family for graduation, and they got all their rules about you can't be picked up at a certain place, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. So my granddad, being my granddad, the same man on the wall here, I get picked up in the proper spot, but then I'm like, crap, I forgot whatever it was, my folder, my lifeline light, whatever it was. And my granddad's like, that's fine. I'll just drive across the parking lot, drop you off, you can run and get it. I was like, no, I gotta get out here, go across the parking lot. He's like, shut up. You ain't gonna disrespect your granddad. And he's like, sit down, shut up. It's fine. Man, I no sooner to get out of that damn car across the parking lot, and this drill sergeant just starts up, down, one to the other on me about breaking the rules and recycling me and all this stuff. And my granddad's sitting in the car just watching, shaking his head, laughing. I was like, thanks.
And you're just thinking like, Grab Pops, what's the problem?
Yeah,
I told you this was going to happen.
Yeah. He didn't. Yeah. He also the same individual that went into the basic for the graduation stuff, and he basically tells the drill sergeant to get out of his chair and out of the way so he can take a picture of the mural behind the dude's desk. And of course, I'm shell shocked, still in basic, 18 years old, going, you can't do that. Like, don't talk to that sergeant like that.
For the Air Force, you finish basic. Where do you guys go next? I know for us in the Army, it's AIT. What is it for the Air Force?
They call it tech school.
Tech school?
So, yeah. So, for me, I went to Biloxi, Mississippi. Ended up getting down there, so from San Antonio. And, again, when I originally went through, I was going more for the technical, lack of better words, box swapping job. And did the basic electronics school, did all the things that went along with that. I think I was down there 8-9 months, give or take, down at tech school for graduating and getting stationed at Offutt.
Tech school is 8 to 9 months?
Yeah. And ours was the mid-range folks. We had some of the linguists that were 12, 18 months there. And then we officially called it the Pop-Tart Squadron because they would come in and out and they'd be, a month maybe. Their tech school and then on into their primary job. So you had a pretty good blend down there of people that were there a very short time to folks that have been there a good while.
I'm going to backtrack because I forgot to ask you this question. What instrument did you play in band?
I played the trumpet, and I actually still have it sitting across the room from me. I pick it up from time to time and play it. I'm not near as good as I once was by a long shot, but not that I was ever that great.
I was just going to ask you, still play?
I mean, I pick it up from time to time. I'll play, as morbid as it is, I play Taps and Amazing Grace, just because they're two, as weird as it is, they're two of my favorite songs that soothe me in a weird way. So just something I do from time to time to just settle in my brain every once in a while, for sure.
So you get done with tech school. Where does the Air Force send you first?
Off at Air Force Base. Only place I ever went in my Air Force career. They like to joke and say, once you get on it, you never get off it.
Where's that located?
Omaha, Nebraska. So actually it's in Papillion, right outside Omaha, or not Papillion, Bellevue, right outside Omaha.
How is Omaha, Nebraska?
Hot and cold. There is no in between. Yeah, the story I was mentioning earlier about driving up, I had my granddad's old 72 pickup that I had bought at that time for my mom, and had a dude supposedly go through it. And I get up to Kansas City, and I'm coming down a hill and no power. And mind you, this is late 96, early 97. There ain't cell phones. You barely have pagers. You might have a payphone if you're lucky. So here I'm in the middle of downtown Kansas City, lost it. And two dudes walk by, and they're like, "Hey man, you got a wrench? We'll fix anything wrong with your truck." And I was like, "Yeah, probably in here somewhere. I got a small toolbox." And they're like, "Oh, well, the other part is we wouldn't have your stuff in there after dark because it won't be there in the morning." And granted, I ain't got a lot. I've got this piece of furniture that is my TV, because back in the day they didn't have TVs like we had. It was a piece of furniture, as you're probably familiar with, and dresser and other stuff like that. Basically, all my worldly possessions, because I'm going to my first duty station. And so I looked at the dude and I said, "Well, I appreciate it." I said, "It's nice to know that you're telling me that you're either going to steal my shit or somebody else is. So that's a plus." So ended up walking over, found a garage that had a payphone, managed to get my truck. They were going to come get it or whatever. So I'm still sitting out in the middle of all this traffic. People are going by, all this. And this lady finally stops with her little Honda Civic. And to this day, I wish I remembered her name. But in all the chaos, I never got it. But she ended up giving me like 3 or 4 rides back and forth to a hotel that day, carrying all my shit, like stuff in this big TV furniture thing in the back of her Honda Civic. Was a bit of a challenge, but we managed to do it. And yeah, she 3 or 4 trips to the hotel, got me off the street, helped me out. And then fast forward, the only person I know to call is a buddy from tech school that was up there. He had been there. I don't even think he was there a month yet. Ben Big Dog. I love him to death. I haven't talked to him in many years, but, yeah, I get a hold of him and I'm like, "Ben, dude, I'm stuck in Kansas City, 2.5 hours down. Like, I need a ride. Like, I need you to come get me so I can be at work on Monday." He's like, "Dude, I can't. I'm working shift all week or all weekend." He's like, "But I'll send my girlfriend down there." And I was like, "Dude, you've been there all of about a month. How do you already have a girlfriend? 1, and 2, how did you meet somebody crazy enough to drive 2.5 hours to pick some dude up that she's never met?" Well, yeah, fast forward, she come down, I don't know, 4 hours later, she shows up. She's like, "Are you John?" And I was like, "Yep." And she's like, "I'm here to get you, Ben sent me." And I was like, "What?"
Holy shit.
Okay.
Man.
So we roll up, and I ended up having to go back and get my truck a few weeks later after they had supposedly fixed it. It's never ran right. I ended up having to get rid of it. But yeah, that was my first adventure and introduction to Offutt Air Force Base. Was broke down in Kansas City, a ride from some stranger, a ride all the way back up to Offutt with a stranger, and that's how I started my E4 career.
Isn't it crazy how we look back and it seems like people are just so trusting back then? Yeah, I'll go help whoever, not knowing who. Nowadays, you're sitting out there, you better call AAA or something. But that lady to stop and help you, not only like help you move all your stuff, true testament that there are real good people in the world. Those are the people that we're seeking out and trying to, help. I mean, great people.
And for me, it's 25 years later. I'm still talking about the lady. I'm still grateful for all that she stepped up and did that day. And for me, it truly was probably one of the first outside instances of being outside Arkansas and seeing random strangers actually give a shit. And I carry that with me, with how I engage with people. Some people would argue that I'm an asshole. I don't disagree. That said, I don't like to be, and I don't want to be. My wife likes to tell me I'm really good at it though when I want to be. So, but I truly want to live my life and push my life to do a betterment, not only for my own, but for others as well, as much as I can. So,
What was a normal day like for you out at that duty station?
oh, starting out,
Yeah.
drinking a lot, as you can imagine, being reckless and young and not really having parental supervision other than, hey, go to work and go home. Check in with anybody. I don't think I get to be an adult. So that was a fun adventure, being young and growing up in the Air Force and doing the different roles. Regular day in life, I spent every third week, a week at a time on alert. So we would be on duty. We would work our 12-hour shift, 7 days a week, the entire time we're on alert. And then we would get off alert 9:30 in the morning or so. We'd go, everybody pile to the bar. They would open early for us, and we would decompress and start again the following Monday. That'd be like a Thursday. So the following Monday, we'd be back in and get on pagers. So we'd sit on pagers for a week, just in case anything happened or they needed somebody to come in. We would do that, and then we'd have a few days off and start the cycle again. So for 8 years, that's the way my life was. Every third week, going for a week at a time, all the way through September 11th, where we were on duty, and I just got off a bench shift. So I got off at 7:30 in the morning, went and laid down in the bunks, because we had some stuff going that day, and somebody come back there and they're like, hey, we got to go get our bags. Plane hit the train center. And I was like, damn, man, at least they could do is make this shit realistic, because we were supposed to have an exercise going on. So I thought it was part of that. And they're like, no, they don't know what's going on. And I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. So go down, get our bags. We'll come back. And at the time I smoked, so I was having a cigarette down at the bottom of the aircraft. All of a sudden the horn goes off and all hell starts breaking loose. So we run up, get our stations and whatnot, and take off and do our thing for the next 30 plus days, where we were one of the few aircraft that were up during the time.
What type of aircraft was it?
747. So it's the one that you see off my left shoulder here. We affectionately call it the Big White Pig with a blue stripe. Most people call it, or have called it, Air Force Two at times, mistakenly thinking it's Air Force One at times, because they're a mirror aircraft platform of the 747.
So what was that like, 9/11 that day, when you realized, like, oh shit, this ain't a drill, this is the real deal? How did you feel?
It was almost like going into game mode. Like, if you remember back in the day, best thing I can give is a sports analogy. When you go to that championship game where you've been practicing and you've done all the legwork to get there, and now it's game time, and you just lock in and you do your thing. And for me, as best I can remember, that's what we all did, is nobody knew anything. And I think that was the scariest part, is just the unknown. Hey, when are we getting off alert? What are we stuck here? Like, what's the deal? Am I going to be able to call my family? We worked on one of the biggest communications platforms in the military, and we're unable to talk to our folks, and let them know, hey, we are okay, and things like that. But, yeah, beyond that, I think it was just locking in on the training that we had and doing our job.
How long was it before you got to contact your family?
I think it was, if I remember right, we managed to get a hold of ours in a decent manner. Again, being a comp guy is helpful in that scenario. Everybody becomes your friend. So we managed to communicate. I'll leave it at that, with the appropriate people for our crew at the time, to ensure that their loved ones knew as fast as possible that they were okay, because nobody likes to live in wonder. And so we, as a junior guy, I did my best to make sure that people got out and got their information out.
Communication, I think, it's huge in life in general. You need communication for relationships. That was one of the biggest things. Being aviators, flying, right? Having communication with other aircraft, the people in the LZ. I mean, talking to ground, tower, communication. And it's crazy how people wouldn't even understand when your radios didn't work in the aircraft. It was not a good feeling. There's other ways to communicate, signals and all that other stuff, but it's crazy how communication will win wars, lose games, lose relationships. And it's something I think we all could get better at, just communicating more. It'll just make us all better people.
One of the issues that I've run into as of late, and it's something I struggle with, is the articulation when communicating and having it not come across as aggressive or direct, or me not being open to ideas and suggestions. I find myself being told more and more, which I don't like, that I come across brash and direct and short, and some of the things that I engage with people. And I'm like, no, that's not the way that I want to come across. I'm actually trying to have a conversation with you. It's just, I come across very pointed on things that I'm passionate about. So I come across short. I come across like uncaring almost at times, by virtue of just, it is a black and white thing to me on certain things. And there is no discussion. It is black and white. We do it this way or that way, and we don't dwell on it. And not everybody thinks that way. I have a weird mindset on just life in general. You know, when we talked about me going to the Air Force, it was, all right, cool, I'm going to go to the Air Force. I'm going to do my 4 years. Oh, you're going to pay me a little more and let me have an extra rank for 6 years. Well, shit, if I got to do that, then I might as well go ahead. That's going to push me close to 10. So if I'm going to do 10, I might as well do 20. So before I ever joined, I had a 20-year mindset that guaranteed me a house payment. So then when the opportunity came over to go to the Army and fly helicopters, I like to joke and say that they'd pay me more and let me fly helicopters, and who wouldn't want to do that? But in all reality, it was retire in my brain as simple as retire as an E7 in the Air Force or retire as a W3. The house payment's better as a W3 retirement than it is as an E7. So for me, it was a very black and white decision on my 20-year plan. So then it becomes, all right, cool. At 20 years now, if I'm still having fun, I'll still keep doing my job. If I'm not, I'm out, because there's other opportunities beyond that I can move on and do. But for me, that's the way that I've always envisioned my stuff is long term. Not, you know, the little short term stuff, pretty black and white on a lot of it. You know, like do one thing, move to the next, move to the next. And I use another analogy I'll throw your way is, you'll hear rigidly flexible. And I kind of chuckle at that until I thought about it. And I'm a visual guy, as you've probably picked up by my analogy earlier. But the way that I describe this is, we can all agree that in the medevac, you have a straight line shot to the point of injury, right? Whether they're at a hospital or whatever it is. That's point A to B, right? B is the goal. That's where we're going. That's our rigid. That doesn't change. Our goal doesn't change, or whatever we label that goal as, whether it's saving the patient, driving a successful business, having a great podcast, whatever it is, that doesn't change. That's our rigid. Now, our flexible becomes that straight line between the two. The goal is to maintain that as best as possible. But as we go along, we do this and we make tiny adjustments to get to that goal, because that's the rigid and never changes. But our flexibility is, how do we do that? How do we continue to change and adapt while staying as close to that true line as possible? So that's the analogy I truly give on rigidly flexible now, so people can hopefully understand, like, there's a goal to be done. That doesn't change. But we as a team need to be able to adapt and overcome things that come our way. Like we talked about with marriage earlier. Nothing's easy. Nothing's given. Nothing's, you know, anything worth having is worth working for. I'm sure you've heard that before. And I don't know if that's just some made up shit that somebody was working and got tired of go sitting around and not doing anything. And so they threw that out there in hopes to get others to join them or whatever. I believe in it. I've seen success in it, you know, from going to the Air Force, to the Army, to then retiring out and landing with one of the smallest companies in the world. And I say that because I was their first employee under their company name, doing Army acquisitions when I retired. And as you heard in my background, I had tons of experience doing Army acquisitions. So, you know, putting in the work and driving to get to where you want to be is really a thing that we all need to do.
I think something, I will agree with you 100%. Communicating, when I freshly retired from the Army, communicating with people was a struggle for me too. And I think there's one, it's our job, and I'm going to place this on us, right? And I'm speaking from my experience too. It's our job to try to get people to understand where we're coming from. We come from a world of brevity. Like, you have to be clear, concise, get your point out, keep it pushing. When you're on short final with a guy bleeding out, you don't have time to sit there and, tell your life story to tower and ground. It's like, hey, I'm here. I got to get there. That's it. Right. On top of that, there's fast movers. There's a lot like I always say, there's a lot going on. So everybody has to be quick, clear, concise, get your point out. And when we hear you, we just keep pushing. And I've been told, just like you, Jason, you're such an asshole. You're doing this. I'm like, listen, I don't mean to be that way. So now I have made it my life mission to try to make sure that I communicate people so I don't make them feel like I'm talking down, I'm being an asshole, I'm not listening to them, because a lot of people want to be heard. And it's something that it takes a lot to adjust to, because when you're in that cockpit, or just in the Army in general, you do what you're told, no matter where you're at. Even as warrant officers, we got our commanders telling us what to do. We got brigade, battalion commanders, everybody yelling, not yelling, but telling you just take those orders and keep it pushing. So that's something that we are just products of our environment that we have to readjust to our new environment. So you're not the only one struggling with that communication thing and the beat down on the character. At what point in the Air Force did you realize, first off, what was your rank at this time?
When I transitioned, I was an E5.
E5?
Yeah.
What happened that made you realize it's time for me to leave the Air Force? I want to go fly helicopters in the Army.
Literally, a buddy come home and was like, hey, you ever thought about flying for the Army? And I was like, yeah, but you got to have a degree. And he's like, no, dude, you don't. I was like, what? It's like, really? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, let's fucking do it. And so fast forward, and you'll see this repeat in my story again later in life. But I was like, cool, let's do it. I went out and got the package built. I got the letter of rec from the 06 Army colonel that I supported on the team that I was on. Got my buddy a letter of rec as well. Submitted our packages and did it in short order. Within, I'd say 6 months of the time he came home with the idea to the time I was transferring over to the Army is how fast that I move on things. Because once I made up a decision, why am I sitting around at that point? The decision's been made. We're actioning towards it. We're not sitting here dwelling, and we're not thinking and thinking all the what ifs and the ends and the buts, and because you'll be there all day, right? You can what if things to death, but at the end of the day, the decision was made. Rock on and move on. Let's get to the next stage. So for me, that was a very quick decision.
Did you have any deployment time with the Air Force? Any combat time?
No, nothing like you would equate to combat time at all. Like not in that sense. I was gone a lot. I was on duty a lot under the rule of thumb of once you're on duty and on alert, you don't go off like your area. It's not even like you can go across base. Like you're literally restricted to your building, the chow hall, and the aircraft kind of deal. So from the restrictive side of what deployments were, and I can say that because I was deployed with the Army 3 times, but from the restrictive side of the house, absolutely, that there was very much there. But from the deployment and the combat and people shooting at you, no, not Air Force.
Where's your most memorable moment in the Air Force?
I'd probably have to say the stick with 9/11. Like just the fact of getting off of mid shift after working and then running out, and then I was on duty from then on for I don't know how many more hours we stayed on duty, actively working in our positions. And then I think ultimately we were 30 days on at that point by the time it all shook out. But yeah.
What was your biggest life lesson or takeaway from the Air Force?
I don't know, man. That's a tough one. There's so many. I'd say just drive and determination.
So you show up to Fort Rucker, Alabama, go to warrant officer school, and I'm pretty sure when you went, it was the old school way where they just pretty much hazed us for 6 weeks. I don't mean in a bad way, so I don't want people to say, the Army hazes stuff. So you just have to do the hard stuff, the little dumb stuff that we do in the Army. Fill out our little cards and make our beds every day because they messed them up. Was that the type of warrant officer school you went to, or was it different? You went in 06, right?
It was literally one day in the Air Force, wearing the Air Force uniform. Got to Rucker the next day, got handed a list and go to clothing sales, pick up your uniforms. So I get to close cells. This lady starts piling shit in a basket for me, and I'm like, I don't know where all these patches go. Like the Air Force doesn't have these. I wore a green suit when I was in the Air Force. So going through all that, and then yeah, as far as the warrant, it was similar to the Air Force basic training in a lot of ways because it boiled down to attention to detail. And when you look at the menial tasks that we were given and what we would consider hazing at times, like it literally was attention to detail. Why? Because they're about to put you in a multi-million-dollar aircraft potentially, especially as a flying warrant, that you don't have time to have little nuanced fuck-ups. You can't miss little details. Like we talked about with communications. Like I had a junior pilot when I'd made PC, and we're down in Louisiana doing training, and I look over and this dude's changed every radio that we got to something that is not what we should be on, and we're flying around in restricted areas, you know, and it's like, that's not good. That's not okay. But because of that attention to detail that they beat in your head early on in those training events, it carries through, but you don't always see it when you're going through it. You know, we were the ones that we got back full dress service dress thing where we think we're about to go back and get cleaned up or change out and then whatever. No, we're out there rolling in the grass in our full service dress, doing push-ups, sit-ups, crunches, whatever the variant of where they go in the circle and make you do all the things. And when one gets tired, they'll rotate you. So then they'll smoke you doing something different. Then they'll rotate you. And yeah, so we did that in our full service dress out there, and then get told, oh, well, look at you. You messed up all your shit. Now go fix it.
The biggest thing I learned from warrant officer school, WOX, is, I don't know if it's even named that anymore, but what you said, the attention to detail and the mentality that no matter how much they try to stack the odds against you, keep pressing forward. Keep pressing forward. Just with the 7-minute drill in the morning. Remember that? 60 dudes got to be outside in 7 minutes. That's from out the bed, brush teeth, shit, shave, everything. So just keep going forward. Get into WOX. What were you thinking when you got there and going through everything? Were you like, damn, I should have kept my ass in the Air Force?
No, I was actually pretty stoked about it. It was weird though, because the buddy I'd mentioned that had brought up the idea, he actually got picked up on his first look for his package. I got picked up on my second look. So he was down there a month and a half ahead of me. And so when I showed up, they were like, hey, do you want to start this course? And I was like, dude, I don't even have a uniform there. And you want me to start tomorrow? So I asked them and they let me delay. But by delaying, I ended up waiting another 4 months or whatever it was to be able to start a course. And at the time, they were bouncing back and forth between the 4-week course 4-week course if you'd been through a leadership course through one of your other services, or you had to do the 6-week program. So I ended up being on the 6-week program, and they changed the rules, but since I was already registered in the course, I ended up doing the 6-week course.
How hard was flight school for you?
It was very much like the band. And I know that's a weird analogy to bring up out of that, but I compared to when I was in band and my brother played clarinet, and he's the type of individual that could pick something up, do it, and run with it very easily in appearance without having to put a lot of practice in. I was the individual in band that had to sit there for hours on end to try and get something worked out to be able to make it even remotely close to as good as his stuff. And flight school is very much the same for me, you know, going in and one, not thinking I belonged. That was a huge thing for me. Is one, how the fuck am I? Why am I here? Like, how am I here? You know, I've got all these smart people that are around me that are killing their PT tests. They're fucking nailing all their tests, you know, and doing all these things. How the hell did I get here first? And then from there, okay, I'm here. Now it's a no fail. You know, I won't go to the Army needs of the Army. That ain't happening. You know, I left the Air Force as an E5. I'm not going to the Army as an E4. So having that extra sweat, heat behind me to help me drive and push was a big thing. And then ultimately, you know, when you're talking about your family dynamics and ensuring that your family's successful and taken care of, you know, the weight of that when you're going through that type of thing. So
you were married at the time, right?
Yeah, we actually had my second child, my daughter, when we were down at Rucker. I was getting ready to start nights, and my wife had her, and she ended up going to the NICU in Birmingham. So while I was going through nights, I was getting done there, driving up to Birmingham, seeing my daughter in the NICU, driving back home, going to nights, getting done, driving back to Birmingham. So almost, I forget how long she was in the NICU, but yeah, that was an interesting battle just internally of managing that and managing the Army and their expectations and things like that. And, you know, you don't expect people to be human in certain scenarios, especially in those training environments, because there's that level of separation of their instructors and they're this and you're at this level. So for me, I never saw it as a connection that I could ask them, hey, I've got a daughter in the NICU. Can I take some time for me and take care of them? And that never registered in my head. And then finally one day a dude asked me, he's like, dude, you're fucking looking like you're struggling a little bit. And I said, yeah, dude, here's the deal. And he's like, why didn't you tell us? Like we could have accommodated, we could have done, you know, whatever. And I was like, y'all don't come across that way. It's like, y'all aren't the most presentable, like approachable folks when you're yelling at me and flipping me one way and the other. And
it's a very common thing in the Army. We're afraid to ask because most of the time we're just is driven to us to just keep going. And it's hard for us to ask for that, you know, that help and like, hey, my family needs this. And so I completely understand. How'd your wife feel about you leaving the Air Force, joining the Army to become a helicopter pilot?
First, she hated the idea. She hated the idea of leaving home. You know, by this point, I'd been in the Air Force stationed where she grew up for 8 years, you know, had up till the point of my buddy coming home and even having the idea. I'd never even considered it. I planned on retiring as an E7 out of Offutt Air Force Base was kind of where I was at in life. And I had even told her parents that I wasn't going to move her away unless I absolutely had to. So then when the time came and I was like, hey, we're going, you know, I think there was definitely some resistance at first in the unknown. You know, you don't know what you don't know. So now jumping completely over from one service to another, it's scary. And then, you know, getting there and going through flight school and meeting some of the friends that we met that we're still friends with to this day. Chuck Myers is one of them. He lives right across the street from me. We still hang out quite a bit, but that's a relationship that I gained going through walks and flight school. But yeah, for the initial thing, I think there was some fear in the unknown.
Shout out to Chuck. Hey, let Chuck know I want to get him on the show too. So hit him up today. All right. I want to see. I haven't seen him in a minute either, man.
Yeah, he's doing good. He's working as a government guy over in Air Warrior. So all your aviation stuff that you would have dealt with when you were in the Army, he's now part of that program, from the ALSI to the electronic flight bags to who knows what all he's got his hands in nowadays. But yeah.
When did you realize, did you always want to fly Blackhawks, or was it something in flight school you're starting to, cause you know how in flight school, man, I want to fly this, I want to fly that. I was a Blackhawk guy from the time I started flight school. But when did you realize what aircraft you want to fly and the likelihood of you getting it?
Weirdly ironic in the fact that I wanted the Chinook. That was the aircraft that I had in my mindset. All the people that I had talked to about the Chinook drivers, you know, their laid back attitude and things like that, to me fit me. Like I was
very I can see you as a Chinook pilot.
I'm easygoing, you know, whatnot. And I say it was ironic because it was the first time that I had seen in my time there at flight school and watching all the people do their selections and everything, where we got to tell them, hey, this is what we want. And then fast forward to the old male selection, and the number of people we had in our class identically mirrored the aircraft that they had available for us, and everybody's numbers were there. So there was enough Chinooks for all the Chinook people. There was enough Blackhawks, Apaches, Kiowas for everybody. Everybody that wanted their aircraft, they had lined it up, and everybody was getting what they wanted. And then there's John, because life has a way of figuring shit out that just ain't always what you expect. So they drop in this dude in our old male selection that had gotten bumped out of his class the week, 2 weeks, month, whatever it was before. So they drop him into our old male selection. And I'm just sitting there bullshitting with the dude and having a conversation with him, and we're talking, and he's like, yeah, I want the Blackhawk, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, cool, I want the Chinook. And, you know, we've done the math. There's this many of us that want it. And Da 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 da. Guess where he gets picked to draw aircraft selection in the list of OML?
Number one?
Right before me.
Oh, shit, man.
So all this time, probably an hour had passed. We're bullshitting about which one we're selected. And the whole time he's talking about the Blackhawk. Then they call his name, and he fucking rattles off Chinook.
Damn.
Takes the last Chinook selection. So then they asked me. And I was like, well, fuck. I was going to go with that. But now we don't. And so now I'm looking at this dude, literally, I'm all away from him, thinking I want to wring this dude's neck. Like, literally just, but yeah, so I ended up picking the Blackhawk. And once that selection was made and the determination was made for me to be going to the Blackhawks, it was, again, I go back to my mindset. Cool. That's a thing. So now I want to do what I want to do. So made it through flight school in the Blackhawk, and I was hell-bent that I was going to the medevac. And as you know, they generally don't send junior pilots to the med because of the mission, the steep learning curve, the all the things that go along with that mission in and of itself. And then we were talking in the middle of Afghanistan being one of its hottest points. It wasn't a common thing. But when I got stationed at Fort Campbell and they assigned me to the brigade, I argued with the lieutenant till he gave me my way and got me. He assigned me to the battalion, but he wouldn't put me directly to the med. He's like, I won't do that. He said, I'll get you to the battalion, and then you could fight with that lieutenant on whether he sends you to the general support or the med. And so I convinced that lieutenant to send me to the med, and I show up brand new.
What year was that?
Ooh, that would have been 07.
07, you show up to the med, brand new W1 still, right?
Yep. And they had not even fully returned from their last deployment. They were on R&R when I showed up. So they were all beat down. That was one of the worst trips I'd had to Afghanistan, with just overall mission load and severity of missions and things like that up to that point. So they were not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed like I was when I showed up. They came in and were a little rougher for wear. And, you got this brand new kid. I say kid, I was late 20s at the time, but come in and ready to go and anxious. And you get go find a fridge. Do your job. Okay.
That had to be a culture shock coming from the Air Force. Now you're a warrant officer. Show up to your first duty station. You're thinking, because you really don't. Even I didn't know the expectations being in the Army. Showing up to my first duty station as a W1, and they're like, all right, because like you said, we show up excited, want to fly, want to learn, want to do great things for the Army, and they're like, all right, you're the fridge guy. Go do it now. And you're like,
yep.
I didn't sign up to fucking sell cupcakes and fucking ding dongs. What the fuck is this?
Yep.
I caught a lot of heat for that my first duty station because I don't drink coffee, right?
Right.
So they're like, Santiago, you're making coffee. I'm like, the fuck if I am, but I made the coffee. And I told them, I said, look, guys, I'll do everything else. I'll stock the fridge. I'll make Kool-Aid, whatever. I am not good at making coffee. I've never made it in my life before. They're like, all right, you'll learn. So Day one, I go there and I make coffee. The senior warrants are like, who made this shit? They're like, Santiago. Santiago, you're never making coffee again. I said, I try to tell you guys.
The fun part about that is when we're in that situation and we're looking at that fridge and we're seeing that as, coming in, like you said, we're bushy-tailed and we're bright-eyed and we're wanting to learn, and then we get handed this, and at the time you don't see it. At least I didn't. But looking back on it, it goes back to that attention to detail that we talked about earlier. If you can't take and manage a small fridge fund, how the fuck are you going to manage a multi-million-dollar aircraft whenever you're under fire and you got all sorts of shit going sideways? And it sounds stupid to break it down that simple, but it really is. If you can't do a fridge right, why am I going to give you anything beyond that? You know what I mean? So it's much like I see it as the warrant package. It weeds out 80% of the what-ifers. Same thing with the fridge stuff. If you ain't stepping up and showing your worth by this menial task, why am I going to put any effort into you to give you the good stuff from that perspective?
It's very comparable to the Karate Kid. Mr. Miyagi has Ralph doing all these things, the Karate Kid doing all these things. He's like, why the hell am I doing all this stuff? Then later on, he sees why. It's the
Yep.
same thing. I agree with you. It's the same thing with the fridge. Showing up, you think, why the hell do I got to do this? But it makes you realize, can you manage a simple fridge? Are you going to be resourceful? Are you going to be a team player and do the things that we just ask you to do? And sometimes you have to sit back and just, it's crazy how we look back on it now and that's how we view it. But at the moment, we're thinking, this is the dumbest shit ever. But in
Yep.
reality, it does serve a purpose. When was your first combat deployment with 101st?
Ooh, that would have been 09. So went out with them as a brand new W1 in 09 to RC South, which was the southern part of Afghanistan. Ended up stationed out at Kandahar, and then the Med, as you're familiar with, branched out to multiple FOBs outside of that. We branched out and went over to the west side of the country where we opened up another forward operating base, the FOB, on the west side of the country as part of that. It was a drastically different deployment than the other two, as far as violence, as far as just overall mission and what we did. You know, we didn't go anywhere without armed escort. Whenever we go what we call the green zone, so you'd be flying over the desert in the middle of nothing, and then you get into kind of what you see in my picture here from Dave Bowing, the green zone, where anybody and everybody's aiming to shoot at you, is what your mindset almost has to be. It's not that everybody does, don't get me wrong. You know, I'm not saying that, but as they say, a few can ruin a lot for many. But in that aspect, you know, you took it low right above the trees. You went zigzag patterns. You didn't go straight to where you were going to ensure that when you got there, you weren't getting blown up kind of deal. The second deployment, we went from being, you won't go into hot areas without armed escort, to you'll go in with Blackhawk chase, you know, that have guns on them. Because as you're familiar with the Med, the saying is unarmed and unafraid. We go in with just our sidearms and ARs as personal protection, and ain't shit for the aircraft from that perspective. And then, you know, as you go into the second deployment, the political stuff starts playing a factor in it, and what we can do and what we can't do. And then go into the third deployment where there is no escort anymore. It's med. And so we're going in these scenarios, same country, same shit's going on, but now we're authorized to go in with med, and truly unarmed and unafraid in scenarios of flying into these missions. And it was a different dynamic in that, right? Because from the first one, you're going in, you're almost stirring up the hornet's nest that's down there in part of it. And you're able to make decisions as a pilot in command that are going to affect other people's lives, and be able to go in and pick patients up based on your situational awareness and what you see in front of you. And then to the third deployment, we would sit, and there was one time we sit and loitered for I don't know how long and waited. And goes along with the Polish Army award that I was awarded, that, you know, you sit in your loiter just waiting to be told, yeah, you can go in. Well, fuck, while you're sitting there flying around, everybody and their brother can see you out there. They're doing whatever they're doing. And 9 out of 10 times, the Med, especially going to POI, I would say 10 out of 10 times, is because somebody's having the worst fucking day of their life. And it's not a good thing. Like, people know you're coming. They're expecting you. There's so many different elements that go into that particular mission, you know, and so now we're told, hey, hang out and wait until we get you somebody to come in. Well, you don't have anybody, and the closest people you have is 30 minutes away. Whether they're armed or not, that's not doing us any good, because now we're knowingly going into a hotbed because we've let them build it up. And, you know, there were scenarios where we're going in to land in an LZ, and you would start seeing rounds being walked into the LZ. And at one point, we had it happen where the ground folks were like, fuck it, he's not that bad, we're going to drive him out, because the rounds they could see him being walked in. And as we were on low approach, we said fuck it and took off, because the vehicle started rolling. We thought they'd already picked up one patient, because when our lead bird went in, they barely touched down, and then they took back off. And again, it goes back to that communication we were talking about. Basically, when we came in, they came down, we came over the trees, kind of providing them covers, and broke around to come in behind them again. But when they landed, we didn't know it at the time, but the doc got shot. So they basically threw him back in the aircraft, or he'd crawl back in or whatever it was, and they took back off. Well, we thought we were coming in for a secondary patient, thinking they got the gunshot wound because that's all we heard over the radio. So as we're coming in, they're walking rounds in, and that's when the truck started pulling away, and we're like, what the, we're out of here. So we finally, as we're pulling out on our climb and turning, we get a hold of the sister ship to find out that our doc's been shot and that they were rolling back to get him higher care. And the gentleman on the ground wasn't as bad as was thought. So they were just driving him out to get out of the scenario as well. But yeah, just dynamic stuff like that happened all the way.
I want to backtrack. Your first deployment,
Yeah.
were you a W-2 by then?
Man, you make me think. Yeah, I think I made W-2 by that.
You weren't a PC by then, were you?
No, I'm the unicorn, if you will, of the PC world when it comes to that. I was not a PC. I was one of the 4 or 5 junior warrants that were there. They ended up having one individual get his PC ride while we were there. Shortly after he got his PC ride, he was flying from one side of the airfield to the other with one of the captains of the unit that was a PC prior. And they come over across the short final on the taxiway, basically put the ass into the aircraft into the ground, starting with the ass. So when they went in, they ended up dropping it right on its tail and slamming to the ground. And at that moment, they're like, yep, no more junior PCs. So fast forward through another deployment, I didn't get my PC ride then. And then, so on the third one is when I got called up. Or second one, I don't remember.
So that first deployment, because I talked to other people, where were you on the outlying FOBs, or were you at Kandahar the whole time?
No, I bounced around from Kandahar to Ramrod to Wilson. We opened Wilson up. I was one of the first ones to go out there with that, helped them build out the platform and the tent, set it all up. And then Delaron 2, which was out west. All over the Helmand province, out of Dwyer. That was probably, Wilson was the worst. Dwyer was, at least on the first moment, Dwyer was the worst as far as going down to the Helmand and over the green zone and things like that.
So you left the Air Force. Now you find yourself in RC South, the worst place probably on the planet at the time, right? What were you thinking when you got there and things started, the kinetic activity started, you started doing POIs and shit's getting real for you as a medevac pilot. Before I get there, what made you want to become a medevac pilot?
Other than being stubborn, I wanted to know that when I walked away, I had done something worthwhile, is really what it boiled down to, because by that point I was 12 years into my 20-year career when I got stationed at Offutt at Fort Campbell. And at that point, yeah, I'd done the 9/11 thing. I'd been on the E4, but I hadn't done anything in my mind that I knew that when I walked away, I could be proud that I'd made an impact on other people's lives and hopefully be something that I could be proud of, as selfish as that is at the end of the day. But it truly boiled down to making sure that I knew when I was done that I'd done something worthwhile.
Love it. So back to that original question, what were you thinking when everything started? Kinetic activity, doing POIs. All you remember is being in the Air Force. Now you're in the thick of the shit as an Army medevac pilot. What was John thinking?
Damn, this is fun.
This shit is crazy. It is fun from like an adrenaline standpoint, man.
And it sounds fucked up to say that. It was one of those scenarios where there's so much shit going on and you don't have time to think in a lot of sense and dwell on things in that environment, right? You have to live for the moment. You live in the moment to ensure that you have another moment to go on to. And I can't say that there was ever a moment when I was in the cockpit that I thought beyond the cockpit in those moments. I was the individual that when we were there, I was focused on, all right, we've landed. Here's all the shit within the aircraft. Here's what needs to be done. Here's what's action. Yep, that's outside. Call things out and focus on the mission at hand. And it's not until you get back and you decompress and you're sitting there on your hours on end of just nothingness that you sit back and go, fuck, that was a lot. And about the time you get that out of your mouth, you run into another one. And it's never. I mean, you did it. You never know when that first horn goes off, whether it's going to be a POI or somebody with a stub toe that's been sitting it on it all day, and now at 2 a.m. their fucking toes exploding and they need emergency care. Like, there was all sorts of variants in there, but yeah, for me, it was never in that moment. I was never able to go, oh yeah, this is all this. It was really compartmentalized focus on what I was doing in the moment.
That deployment, what was your most memorable moment? Good, bad, indifferent, act of heroism? What was your most memorable moment of your first deployment as an aviator?
Aside from coming back with bullet holes, jumping out of the aircraft and jumping right back in another one and going out and doing another mission, I'd say the funniest and most memorable would be with Mike Nielsen. If you can remember the MASH guys back in the day, Hawkeye and the other one, Mike was a blend of those two. He was an old soul, I will affectionately call him a crusty maintenance officer. That we're going on this mission and we go and we fucking plant in the middle of this field and we're looking around and nobody can see any patients or anything like that. And then the crew chief or the medic calls that they see them, however far on another field over. So Mike pops that bird up. We flip around, we fly, we duck back down, and we land. He's like, "That's what you call a false insertion, boys. It fucks the enemy all up." I was like, Mike, you realize none of us knew where the fuck we were going, right? He's like, yeah, it's fine. It fucks the enemy all up. So I'll never forget that one.
I would like to hear that story that you had to jump out of the aircraft to go to the next aircraft.
Oh, well, that was one where Wilson, that I was telling you, we were out doing a mission and doing our thing, come back. No sooner we got out of the aircraft, you do your post-flight, and we're looking around, the tail rotor's got a big dent from where my bullet had hit that. We had one go through the hydraulics round. We had one go through a rotor blade. And, all right, cool. Fuck. Mission's still going. Horn just went off. Hop in another one and fucking go. I obviously never went to Vietnam, but I feel like that was some of the shit that they had to do back in the day is, when they talk about being shot down, you land with an aircraft and it's full of bullet holes, you don't really want to take that one again if you can help it. So, and just I don't know, there was never even a thought of not going again. When you look at that, you look how lucky we were to come back and be able to put it on the ground and not have that have a catastrophe that could have very easily happened with that. But yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway or learning lesson from that first deployment as a brand new W-2, brand new aviator?
Shit's no joke. You've got to push to be the best. And it's beyond just the best at comparing yourself to anybody else. I never consider or see myself as ever being the best at anything. But what I do mean by that is being the best that I can be. I have to show up and represent every day with the best person, skills, and human that I can be. That doesn't always meet the mark for others. And I get that, I have very high standards now, and I carry that across with the folks that I have on staff for my stuff, because without it, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So I think that's a big part of it.
When you redeployed, you get back from that first deployment, did you notice that you were different at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, there was one case that I think I've mentioned to you before, where we were back home in my wife's hometown. They had a beer garden going for like the summer festival or fall festival or whatever it was, and I went to walk in and I made it 3 feet in, if that, and lost my shit and turned around and basically ran out and sat on the side of a bridge, curled up a ball in the fetal position, losing my shit, while my wife tries to talk me down from it and get me back to a reasonable individual and not a just ball of mush on the side of this bridge. And then, over time and over the years, my patience is a lot shorter. I'm still a lot more laid back and hard to spool up compared to most, but for me, I'm a lot shorter in my dealing with dumb shit, for lack of better words. And just overall engagement with people. You know, there's certain individuals that you deal with and you engage with that mean the world to you, but you suck at communicating them and getting your thoughts and passions across to them without it coming across harsh or in a wrong manner. You know, and I found that I tend to go more outwardly with my help than inwardly in a lot of cases too.
Yeah, that's a common thing. That's how I help my mental health. I help other people. That's my therapy right there. Did you realize at that point that you wanted to get help or you needed help, or you just like, let me suck this up and keep pushing forward?
Suck it up, keep pushing forward. It's a momentary thing in a long running journey. So for me, it was all right, suck it up, move on. We got other shit we got to take care of from that aspect.
All right, John. So you find out you're going on your second deployment. When did you realize this? How did you feel? And what did you do to get ready, knowing that first deployment, very kinetic, a lot of missions, and a lot of stuff going on?
For that one, it was a little bit different, right? In the aspect that I had orders before I ever got done with my first deployment to move. So I ended up having to do a bit of a horse trading deal with another W-2 that was same last name, same rank, same time of service and all that to get to stay at Fort Campbell. Because I just signed the papers on a house whenever I got orders. So it was like, oh, crap. So I knew that I was going to be there a minute based on that decision. So the second deployment wasn't as fearful. It was like, yep, I'm a little senior now. I know what I'm getting into. I get to go back and do the mission that we are trained to do. And, you know, as you know, when you're deployed, there's a lot of things that are very complicated, but there's a lot of things that get real simple. And in that aspect, the complicated stuff is the mission and what you're doing. The simple stuff is just living life. I think you literally get to just kind of go do your job. And for that, it's a peaceful mindset. At least it was for me in a weird way, to be able to go and do that. So the second one wasn't as big of a shock. And it was one of those, cool, I get to go in now. I should be rolling on PC soon. Like I should be able to keep progressing and do those things. So that one wasn't near as fearful, other than the fact I was going to RCE, which, you know, the only thing I knew about that was the last time that unit was there. It was not a great, pleasant environment. A lot of hostilities up around JBAD and that area and the things that went along with that. So, you know, every time that I went, there was a different dynamic or concern based on the environment that you're going to, the mission that we have, the mindset that people have, the crews that you're going in with compared to where you were before. You know, as you know, growing up from a junior W1 on through 3 and 4, especially being in the same unit, you see a lot of change in the aspect of, I came in as a very junior warrant. I was that junior baby guy that was lost in the sauce looking up to these senior folks, and now you're starting to transition in that mid-level where you're not really the people that they look to, but you're also the people they look to because you're going to give them a no bullshit answer that isn't going to affect their career and kind of mentor them in that way. But then you start also getting to that point where now you're the individual that they're looking at for all the answers, and you're like, I don't have it figured out, and I hope they don't know that, but here we go. From that aspect, and I,
because there's so much to learn.
We
don't. Rakeem said it best. Rakeem Francis. Yeah. He was episode 3. Yeah, he was episode 3, 4, and 5. He said it the best. We don't know what we don't know. What outpost were you at in the 2000? It was 2012-13 deployment.
That would have been RC South, so I would have been Bagram. That would have been JBAD. That would have been, oh shit, you're making me come up with full names there. What else was?
We had Shank, Ghazni.
Oh yeah, how the fuck could I forget Shank and Ghazni?
JBAD, and I think that was it.
So Shank, I actually went out to. That was a shit fob. I mean, just straight shit fob, for lack of better words. They got IED'd all the time. The first introduction I got to Shank showed up rounds come in, and they start asking for volunteers to go get cruise bags and personal effects from a gentleman that a rocket had flew between his legs and blew up underneath him while he was sleeping. The same individual, sadly, wasn't at that fob. That wasn't his known fob. He was scheduled to go transition to Bagram, and he was on the aircraft to go to Bagram, got pulled off for maintenance, personnel swap or something. Got told he was going the next day, and ended up getting around and passing away that very same day. And then we got tasked to go collect out personal effects and things like that after the situation went down. And it didn't slow down from there. You know, Shank was the one that ended up with a V-bid that there's video footage out there from the Taliban where they were basically doing a propaganda video, and it shows them doing the planning. It shows them praising the dude that drove the truck. It shows them planning of drawing it out in the fob. And then you see the video of the truck driving around. And it was crazy seeing it from that perspective after living it, because ultimately what it was is a big old water gas truck that they filled up with explosives, pulled right up beside the wall, and then blew it up. And mushroom cloud that was with it, the concussive blow that went with it. You know, medics are weird too. They're the weird fuckers that something like that goes down, most people are running from it. And then, you know, being in the bed and doing that, the first people behind them was the crew chiefs. And then, of course, you know, as a pilot, when you see your medic and your crew chief start running the direction, you're right there with them because you're a fucking team. Yeah, I wouldn't know dick to do with a body part if I found one. And in that aspect to be able to save somebody's life, you know, but in my brain, I was like, everybody in that mindset is like, I'm going to be an extra set of hands. I'm going to be able to help. Knowing that was not my job. There's nothing, you know, other than just be there for moral support at a certain level, you know, as part of that. But yeah, Shank was one of those where we were constantly getting bombarded with incoming rounds and things like that. And then when you talk about Ghazni was the Polish fob. That was the one that I was at whenever I got the Polish Army award from that aspect. But yeah.
Did you get that award for something particular or just for the support of the Polish Army throughout that deployment?
No, it was for a very specific mission. And as you know, being in the bed, you don't always get all the details on what the mission is and what you're doing. You get your 9-line, you go do your job. Under this particular instance, you know, with the med, I'd like to say that there was hours of calm before minutes of chaos. So standard day, sitting around, horn goes off, we get called, we run out, we take off, we do our thing. We have to loiter for a good while waiting on coverage and support, and then ultimately get approval to go in. And it's the GPS puts us essentially on a peninsula in the middle of this, I won't say it's a village, but you can just imagine a peninsula with some mud huts around the edges, and then down below it's green and a bunch of houses and stuff like that. And so when we came in, we came around low and popped up and went to where the GPS said. But of course, as you're coming in, you're looking for making sure the patient is eyes on and whatnot and going to the right spot, even going back to that false insertion thing, being a thing. And as we're coming down, one of them in the back, I don't remember if it's crew chief or medic, calls for a go around. So we instantly pull pitch and continue forward and around. And we're talking about it as we're going out, and everybody agrees we don't see the patient, we don't see anything in the middle of an open, like we're vulnerable right there. So we circle back around, and as we're making our turn, we see the individuals beside a mud hut tucked down and not moving. So the decision's made that we're going to land 2 wheels on the side of this slope, so that we plant our 2 wheels and put the rotor disc about a foot off the building, so that they can have protection from the one side of the aircraft, but then the building protection from the other, because there's obviously something going on. You know, we can't see it, but we know there's a reason this dude's bleeding, right? So normally when they load the aircraft, as you're familiar with, it'll load about waist level. But because of the attitude and the stance, if I can do my fingers right here, the 2 wheels are here, the tail's out here, the patient's getting loaded about right here. So when they load them in, they're loading them up over their head. because of the scenario that we're at, and I'm on the right side and I've got my PC on the left and I'm watching and holding the controls while we're doing this semi-hover two-wheel landing thing or whatever you want to call it. Got them loaded in and departed out. And when we departed out, we obviously dipped out the opposite side and did our low sweep out and didn't think much about it until we get back. And, you know, it's been 3-4 hours later. I'm back in the back, just chilling, doing my thing, and get called to the front. And this gentleman, in my vision and what I remember, he looks about 4 foot tall compared to the dudes he's standing beside. In reality, he's 5'10", 6 foot at least. But the two gentlemen to his side, to his left and right, were giants in that aspect. And this dude looks at me and he's like, "You fly?" I said, "Yes, sir." He's like, "You mission?" Like very broken English. And I was like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "You big balls." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "We're just kind of rolling, doing our thing." And he's like, and he snaps his fingers and these dudes roll out with a bottle of bison vodka and a big ass bottle of Jack Daniels. And he's like, "For you." And I was like, "Man, I'd love to be able to drink this, but yeah, we can't keep this." So we ended up passing it off to some of the Air Force folks that were on the FOB that could enjoy it where we couldn't. And but it was one of those scenarios. I'm not going to talk to a dude that he don't understand me hardly. I don't understand him, and I'm not going to decline his gift to us at that point. You know, I'll deal with the consequences later. But so yeah, we ended up taking it and then passing it off and not thinking too much about it. But at the end of the day, come to find out, he was a small team lead, commander, or whatever his title was for this particular special ops unit, that their sniper had been shot. And so that's the gentleman that we were picking up. And because of us and the way that we approached the mission and that we handled the mission and gave them cover, apparently they'd been under small arms and RPG fire for 4 hours where they'd been pinned down. So when we came in and we did our initial approach and when we did our exit, it pinned the enemy down long enough that they were able to use that as an egress to get out of there and make their way back to the FOB, and able to save the remainder of their team because of the mission that we did. So that's ultimately why they put us in for the Army Polish award, which is, if you'll oblige me, just because I got to sit here and I think it's cool as shit. And there's very few people in the world that have earned this medal, much less be outside of the Polish Army to do it. It's pretty cool. And the other ones that even mean more than the actual medal itself are some of the coins that I was given by the operators from that particular unit as part of saving their team and supporting their team. And to me, there's no medal that'll match what these coins bring in respect for that team and those individuals to be able to have that, you know. And when we talk about knowing that we've done something, medal be damned, like just being able to have conversation with some of the folks that I picked up that were Marines that likely never would have made it home, but seeing them years later and be able to shake their hands and you know that I'm a reason why, or a small part of the reason why that they're still there has been something I'm proud of, for lack of better words. But yeah,
I know you just mentioned it lightly, but how does it really make you feel to know that, one, these people come back and thank you for saving someone's life, and two, knowing that you had that courage and that selfless service to put yourself and your crew in harm's way to do what's right ultimately and save somebody's life? How does that make you feel looking back on that today?
it's pretty wild, you know, because hindsight being 2020, you gotta stop and contemplate a lot of shit. And as you know, and not just a med, but any flight decision when you're out on a mission, whether it's air assault or GSAB or medevac, like you've got to make instant split-second decisions at times that you don't have a lot of time to think and contemplate what you're doing when you're doing it. So really at the time, there was nothing out of the ordinary. It was us going out and doing a mission that we were there to do. And I don't care whether it was a Polish, our folks, the enemy. To me, it didn't matter. It was about getting out there and saving the individual's life that stood up for what they believed in. And sadly, we get in the mindset of enemies being enemies. Well, in reality, most enemies aren't even our enemies. They just are blind and following faith just like we are in a certain instance, So I don't think all people are bad. I think there are people put in bad situations. So for me, it truly, I didn't have time to contemplate it. It was just, hey, let's get out there and do our thing and make sure that we're bringing our teams home. Now that said, looking back, it's pretty fucking cool, to have somebody walk in and show you that level of respect and see things in you that you didn't even see yourself at times, like when you rattled off my introduction and hearing it from somebody else's perspective and how they potentially view me is very humbling. So that's the word that I would go with, is very humbling.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's very, very powerful. What was your biggest takeaway from that deployment?
I don't ever want to do it again. Is really where it came down to. Is after that second deployment, I was fulfilled at that point, and it was one of those, all right, cool, I'm ready to go do something different now. And now I know that I've done something worthwhile. I know that I can go off and do other fun things and it'd be okay, in my mindset. That said, the military and the Army being what they are, I had orders to leave before the third deployment. And ultimately, powers that be got those canceled, because at the time I was one of their more senior medevac folks, and they said, nope, you're going with us. You're not PCSing. And that one was probably the toughest one for me, because at the end of the day, doing that medevac mission, I told my wife at one point, I said, there's only so many times you can pull the straw before you get the short one. And after doing two, I didn't want to do a third. I was like, I'm so close to the end, and I got so much to lose now. And I had the same stuff the first two times. It's just a different mindset and change when you've done it that twice already. And the third time's a charm kind of mindset sets in. It's like, fuck, I don't know if I have it in me to go do this one more time.
What was your most memorable moment from that 2012-13 deployment? Good, bad, whatever you want it to be.
I would say the camaraderie, like the camaraderie of the team that we had across all the different FOBs, across all the different areas that we covered. The teams were truly a team. There wasn't a spot that you would go to that you felt out of place. I would say, bouncing around to the different FOBs and things like that, and being able to show up and integrate into the team and do it fairly flawlessly.
How does it feel to be amongst true heroes? You being a hero yourself, how does it feel? Because I know how I feel when I think about the medics, the crew chiefs, the other maintainers, and everything that goes behind, aviation and for the mission to be done. How does that make you feel now that you're a civilian? You look back and say, man, I did this and these are the people I did it with.
I still don't classify myself anywhere near the heroes category when it comes down to it. And I don't know what else to say on that other than, I've been very blessed in my life with the individuals that I've interacted with, that I've learned from, that I still call friends today, that were acquaintances back then. One of those being Adam Connaughton, who was a medic during my first deployment, that went on to do bigger and better things, that ultimately became a pilot himself and just recently retired. Those are the individuals that I look at as heroes. They were the ones that, truly, in my mind, envisioned what it meant to go save an individual's life. And that doesn't just stop with the medics. When we talk about our crew chiefs in the back and the amazing shit that they were able to pull off, not just from their knowledge of the aircraft, but just the way that they were able to step in and step up and be the extra hands for the medics and those shitty situations, and go above and beyond in their protection of their medics when they would go out and do their things. And then you talk about an individual that he may not get talked about much in the med anymore, but the gentleman that took the picture that I have up over my shoulder, Dave Bowering, he was a journalist, documentary writer, photographer, uh, journalist, patriot. Like, there's so many titles to that man, that he was an individual that we didn't know it at the time. We just thought he was another journalist that was showing up to be part of the Med on the second, third deployment. And, the man had been all over the country, and we didn't realize at the time, but he had funded it all himself. Like, he put his house on the line to be able to go out and tell the story as it truly should be told, from the soldier's view, the ground view. He was embedded with ground troops, us, and that man did more in his time with the Med than most people do in their lifetime, as far as being able to step up and save individuals' lives and put other people first over what his monetary gain or his career or his potential future could have been, based on doing what's right. And truly what I would consider being that hero is that individual that goes above and beyond and goes beyond what just their day job is. When you talk about Dave putting down his camera, which could have easily got him number of $1 million shots, he's throwing his camera down to pick up an IV bag to make sure that the patient's there and taken care of, because the crew chief and the medic are busy doing what they need to do to save an individual's life. Those are the people that I stack up as heroes from that perspective. So for me, it's still hard to even put myself at that level, but it's humbling.
You mentioned coming back that second time, and you're like, all right, I had enough. Because my second deployment too, I had to take a knee. I was like, all right, man, I need a break. I need to unwind a little bit. So I completely understand where you're coming from. From a mental health standpoint, how were you at that time?
Crazy as ever, I guess the best way to put it. I think at a certain point, I stopped looking at the mental health side of it all, and I like to think that I'm fairly decent at compartmentalizing stuff. Even though my emotions and my passions show on my face very clearly, 99% of the time, being able to just shut it down and recognize, hey, we're here to do a job. It's all part of that 20-year goal. Is the way that I kind of viewed it, and was able to get past the mental stuff. That said, I battle every day. I think there are times where people don't understand what it means to have a rating and read a rating on your VA that says 100% permanent total PTSD combat related. Like, when you read what it says in the 38 CFR about PTSD, and to receive 100% rating, that's a gut check. That's a if you're a dominant person at all, or you have that type A personality, I would say, or you have that drive or that requirement to be the head of the household, for lack of better words, which I hate that term, because I think it takes a team to ensure that the household works efficiently and effectively and successfully. But knowing that those titles and things are out there, you get that stigma of having to always have the right answer, always be on top, always be there, ready to go, showing out 100%. And I don't care, that gets lost when you show up at your day job, right? Everybody that's there is in the same boat. They're all working, they're all doing their thing, and they're all pushing forward in their own right. So you all kind of end up in the same level in that aspect. But when you take it outside of that and you go beyond the military and you start looking at the civilian world, and they don't understand what that means. They see it on paper and they're like, yeah, you're 100% PTSD, whatever. Like, cool. But when you actually read that and you read what that means, it's intense, and it's a thing, and it's not something that can visually be seen. So it's hard for people to recognize and understand what that actually means and how to deal with people in that scenario in a lot of ways, and understand that they are battling. Just because I don't have a loss of limb, or I don't have a physical deformity that you can see, doesn't mean that I'm not struggling every day with something, whether that's a physical thing where I get spine shots every 3 months, every time I can get them to give them to me, or the mental side of it. I tried the whole therapy thing at one point. I think it was probably between my first, second deployment, or second, third deployment. And my wife said, you need to stop. You're coming home more pissed off than when you go, because at the end of the day, you're able to talk and release some of that stuff. And if you don't have all the tools to deal with it can be very overwhelming, not only for yourself, but for those around you as well. When you start unpacking a lot of that, lack of better words, trauma. And it truly is trauma when you look at it in those missions that we did, and whether it's medevac or air assault or any other fill in the blank, there's trauma there. There's pain. There's a lot of things that are going on that we just kind of go, yep, check it, fucking roll on, next thing. And we do that. And then when we step back and you don't have all that, and you're able to sit back like we're doing right now and just have an open can of conversation. Deep question,
It
man.
does hit you like a shit ton of bricks, man. I tell, that's another reason I created Heroes Have Wings, because I want the world to know that just because we look like we're okay, it doesn't mean we're okay. Like we battle with some shit. I know I battle with some shit every day. I mean, even last night, had a rough dream, and it's like being in the medevac. We got a shit ton of time, right, where everything's okay. Then all of a sudden, bam, something happens, all hell to the wall, and all crazy shit is going on. But I think this is a good platform for us to at least get some stuff out, because we do spend a lot of time compartmentalizing, and that shit just causes other problems for us.
Just gonna say that when we talk about the PTSD and the things like that and the struggles, I'm only here because of my wife. A lot of people don't know that I pulled the trigger. Fortunately for me, the gun didn't go off. My wife got to me before I could pull it again. It was a rough night of me having too many pain pills to manage my pain, and then a night of drinking with friends that turned sideways, and I was over it. I was done. I was ready to. I was good. Life had dealt me enough. I was full up, and now every day that I wake up, I'm not going to sit here and say it's all rainbows and sugar and that I've never thought about it again. But when I do think about it now, I look at it through a different lens and understand that, one, I never want or will get back that far again. There's too much better served by not. And so, taking and having that mental mind shift is a big thing for folks too. Is it doesn't have to be a drastic gesture as much as mine was, in its sense, but.
Nah, I got a statement, man. I don't know if you believe in God or not, but that's God right there keeping you alive, because he understands. I'm a victim of suicide. I know the outcome of it, right? I know how it feels to have a family member do that, and the profound impact it has on your family. And God was covering you that day, man. I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of us veterans are dealing with that. And it's an epidemic we currently have in this country, right? A lot of veterans are committing suicide because they just feel like they can't get help, because we've been taught our whole life, don't get help. And it's a tough thing, but
and it's sad because there's so much help out there. Like, compared to the Vietnam veterans that came back and the shit that they had to deal with, we've almost, I would say we've done a full 80 in the aspect of there's almost, I won't say too much help out there, but I will say there's almost too much information out there that overwhelms, and being able to get it in small doses so it doesn't overwhelm veterans, and that they can embrace it and take it on their time and grow it into something that is beneficial for not just them, but theirs and their families and their communities.
I want to give your wife a huge shout out, man. Like, you already know this. I'm just adding to it, and I'm not taking away your thunder from her at all, but you have a wonderful wife that is still with you to this day. She's seen your whole evolution of life, and to have a partner like that is invaluable, man. I mean, that is, like, hug her and kiss her when you see her after this, because that's like God has sent you your angel, bro, and you get to live with her every day. So that's great.
100%, dude. She don't always agree with that, but I don't blame her either. I'm not always the easiest to live with. But no, I couldn't agree with you more, brother.
She has that charisma and that personality that balances you and keeps you straight, right? And I think every man needs that in his life. One of the biggest things I've seen with a lot of my mentors and the people I look up to, all of the successful men that I know, they all have strong women in their corner. And that's very important because, listen, being a man, we get beat down a lot. And that shit, it gets tiring sometimes. And having that person that you could lay your head on and just talk to, the pillow talk, that shit's very, very important. One thing I want to tell you something, and we'll pick up after I say this, but I want you to know you are a hero, regardless of what you think. All right, you are a true American hero. The things you've done it more than 99% of. It's even less than that, more than that, right? Because us aviators were a very small number in the Army community, and I want you to know you are a hero, man. Like, stand on that shit. The stuff you did, a lot of people have never done it. They will never do it. It'll be a select few that'll do it when their time is called. But you never shied away. You always answered a call. You went no matter what was happening. So label yourself as that. I'm not saying be boisterous but one of the things I try to tell my brothers and sisters that were in the military, like, be proud of the shit you did. You are an American hero. I don't care what anybody says, bro. I know that if I called you today, you'd come. And that's one of the greatest things, and that's what makes you different from other people. So I just wanted to tell you that. So you find out about this third deployment, you really don't want to go. What was that third deployment like? What was your mindset like? Cuz I talked to Dwayne. You remember Dwayne Taylor, right? I talked to Dwayne about his fifth or sixth deployment. He's like, man, fuck this. I've had enough of this shit. And I get him, man, because hell, a lot is asked of us. So how did you feel on this third deployment? Know that you didn't want to go, but they're making you go.
So after you get over the shock of, fuck, I'm going again, it gets back into that mindset of, all right, we're fucking going again. Let's do this. Let's make sure that our shit's straight. Make sure that our people are trained up the way they need to be trained up. Make sure that we're covering our bases as we should, so that at the end of the day, everybody can come home. I had, you end up with individuals that you'll follow till you go on the ground, and then you meet other individuals that you wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire. A long way in the process. So for that third one, it truly was. I was a company safety officer at the time. I had a great mentor, Emilio Natalio, which I know you know who he is. And it's funny because he's the one that gave my plaque, and it says I'm the best safety officer that the company had ever seen. He actually wrote that because he was a safety officer before me and after me. So it's his little funny dig. Yeah, just going in it, like I said, going from being a brand new W1 that first deployment and going over the green zone and doing all that and being fucking absolutely clueless to then fast forward, I'm a company safety officer. In theory, I have it figured out. You got junior pilots looking up to you, expecting you to know all the answers, like we talked about earlier. And, you just lock into job mode at the end of the day. Once you're there, all the bullshit goes aside and you're able to do your job. And there were times where I'd be sitting in my bunk and the horn would go off and you just close your eyes and go, well, about to find out. And that's all you can do. The running to the bunkers and doing all the shit that I did in my first deployment, I didn't do on the third one. I was like, if it's going to fucking hit me, it's going to hit me. I'm tired. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of diving. I'm tired of digging. I'm tired of, it is what it is at the end of the day. So there was definitely a mental mind shift from the first one to the third one, and overall just personal assessments as far as the mission went. The mission changed drastically from a lot of draw a blank on the word, but basically the alphas. So going and running out to POIs and people being 3/4 blown up, like we're at Wilson and, Dwyer, where they're getting headshots and just massive gunshot wounds and things like that. To then, the third one, we're picking up stub toes and different just different missions all in all. You know, you still had the severe ones. Don't get me wrong. There was one where had I seen it during the day, we wouldn't have went there at night. But it was one of those where it went reverse. Me and the lieutenant flew out right outside the fob of Bagram and went into this LZ. And when we went in at night, it was so dark, and to wash off the lights of the Bagram and all that, you really couldn't see how tight the LZ was. But then fast forward the next morning, or later that day, I guess, because it was early morning when we went the first time. But fast forward, the sun's up, and we end up going back to the exact same POI. And as we're going in, I'm looking, I'm like, how in the fuck are we going to fit in here? Like, because at the time, it didn't process that this is the same LZ until I went back through a couple of missions and saw the code, like the GPS coordinates. And yeah, just high walls, trees everywhere. Like, we should not be going into this motherfucker. But at that point, I was like, yeah, this is the one we went into earlier, so we know we can make it. So now it's get over your fears and let's do this. And you know, we take it in and get it in and out. But just different mentality, different mission from one to the other overall. And
during that deployment, did you realize I'm done, I'm retiring when I get back home?
No, I still had a mindset. I had now been talking to Branch and had an agreement where I was going to leave out of Fort Campbell finally. I took orders to drum, but as part of that, I was going to get to go down to the instructor pilot course. So I got down to Fort Rucker, started in on the alpha course for the instructor pilot course, did the waivers and 5 and 9 and height, weight and all that stuff. And a week into the course, they come in and they're like, hey, John, basically you're out of the course. The battalion down there denied my waiver for not flying the alpha in 90 days or whatever the number was. And so the Army decided to make an example out of me to the rest of the Army, that for Rucker did to the rest of the Army, to stop sending pilots down there that weren't qualified or current in the aircraft. So I called over to the Mike model guys and talked to them, and they're like, yeah, we got a course starting on Monday. This is like a Thursday. He's like, yeah, I've got a course starting Monday. You've already passed height and weight and 5 and 9. So that part's done. Just call Branch, have them switch the thing, and you'll come in on Monday. Cool. Think everything's straight. I'm going to continue on to drum after this and live out another 4 years up there. Got to follow on to Rucker to finish out. I was going to retire and become a DAC was kind of my plan. So I get down there, the waiver gets denied, and I call Branch, and he's like, yep, we're not dual tracking anybody anymore. That was a predecessor thing. You're coming back to Campbell, and you're still going to drum. I'm me. This individual hadn't ever met me. But I told you I don't sit around on things very long. And once I make up my mind, I start actioning towards it. So I told the gentleman, I said, well, here's the deal. I said, you can just put this in. They're already tracking. I'll go to the mic course on Monday. I'll still go to drum. Everything's fine. And he denied me. And so the very next day, I told my boss, battalion commander and company commander, that I was done. I was retired. I told that dude, I was like, I'm not telling you this to say if you don't change it, I'm not, if you do this, I won't retire. I was done. Like, at that point, you want to play your games? Cool. Let's play your games. And he's like, well, you're outside of your window to retire in lieu of PCS. And, oh, by the way, you're not at 19 and a half years. I was at like 19 years, 5 months. I said, I don't care. I said, I want to have somebody along my chain be the one to stand up and deny close to 20-year veteran retiring, and have them stand up and say that. So I go back, and on that Friday, I get a call basically telling me to turn the fuck around, and they were going to make a phone call, and I was going to be in the course and all this. And I said, I don't care. Like, I'm done. I came back. I hand walked my packet all the way through to the division. I called the gentleman the following midweek and said, here's the deal. I'm dropping off my retirement package. You should have it in your inbox shortly. I said, I just need to know, for my sake, what my next call is going to be, whether you concur or non-concur with my retirement. And I said, if you non-concur, it's not going to change the fact that I'm retiring. It's just a matter of me now having to call your boss, who happens to be my former company commander that I was on my first deployment with, and have him explain to me why you won't let me retire at 19 and a half years, because by this point I was at 19 and a half years. So He's like, well, if I see it, I'll rescind the orders. Da da da. I no sooner dropped my package and drove back across base, and I get to my email, and there's a fucking email canceling my orders to drum, and I'm able to process through my retirement, with nothing stopping me. So I retired almost a year to that day, 10 years or 20 years, 6 months and 6 days, not that I was counting. And so had that individual upheld and had the conversation, I would have stayed another 24, 25 years easy. And sadly, I wasn't the only individual that had something similar to that happen under that manager, and drove a lot of, I would not count myself in the group of what I'm about to say, but sent a lot of good folks out the door that had every intention of staying, completely happy with where their careers were going and things like that. And basically just shit all over, and ultimately drove good people out. I had zero regrets about it. I would do it all over again, and I would blink twice and wouldn't look back. I love every bit of my service that I did across the Air Force and the Army. That said, I left it to the next generation to be able to pick up arms and carry the flag for us.
To go back really quickly, what was the biggest difference between deployment 3 to 1?
I'd say the mission and the mindset. The mindset of the medevac and the warriors in the field, whether that's air assault, GSAB, med, boots on ground, that mindset never changed. That was always get the mission done, do what's right by the people beside you, and bring everybody home. Leadership that was no longer in boots and ground and were making decisions from higher levels that weren't in that anymore, were different. You know, on the first one, you literally had the discretion of the pilot command to go in and make a decision for him and his crew, or her and her crew, to go in and save somebody's life. On the third one, we're sitting there flying circles waiting on approval from some jackass that has no idea what the fuck's going on, that's barely getting briefed on the situation, that then gets to decide whether we can go in and save somebody's life or not. And that's a tragedy to me. Like, it should never be left in the hands of an individual that's not there on site, involved in the situation, to determine what the fuck's going on in that instance. Now, you want to jump my ass, chew me up one down the other whenever I get back, and I have all my parties, cool. I'll gladly stand there and take it. But that I would say that was the biggest difference, is the level of authority to operate changed.
It's, I'm going to say this, and a lot of people may not understand what I'm going to say, but it was very disheartening when the decisions from piloting commands are taken away and left to what you just said, people in a talk, nice air conditioning or heated building, drinking coffee, watching shit on a TV. There's one thing you can never do. From a tactical level, you can't take that decision-making from the operators, man. You just can't do that. Because at that point, things happen, because this is real life shit going on at the time. You could Monday quarterback that shit all day if you want, but you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's something I struggled with as well, man. That was a very hard pill to swallow for me, as well as being a PC and just dealing with things. What's your biggest takeaway from that last deployment?
Never give up. Period. Never give up. You know, we went through earthquakes over in Afghanistan. I don't remember if it was the second or third, where we're in Bagram and the whole fucking building's collapsing. The hangar built in the 50s, big concrete things falling down all around us, you know, to being shot at, to being RPG, to being VBID, to rockets coming in, to all the things that could have picked any one of those things and ended horribly for any one of us, you know, but just to never give up. And I know that's ironic coming from a dude that attempted to give up one time, well past that. But in that, you know, in that instance, that's where it's at, you know.
What would you tell a young soldier now after 20 years in the military, 3 deployments, you're battling with your demons like a lot of us? What would you tell a young soldier when you're talking to him? What would you tell him? And you know he needs help. What would you tell him to do to get help?
It's worth it. And I think that applies to the getting help as well. Going out and figuring out what works for you. It may be talking to somebody. It may be going and shooting off guns in your back area or on a range, just blowing off some steams that way. Going out and riding four-wheelers like we do. Going out playing in the mud, just having family time, doing whatever it is that you need to do for you to be the best you. And don't be ashamed. Everybody's got their demons. Everybody's got their battles. Some people hide it better than others. When you look at any individual that you would consider in a strong spot, I guarantee you, they're battling just as many demons, just as many battles as you are. And just because you don't see them treading water, and this is a great analogy, is the fucking duck one, where the duck's sitting on top of the water just chilling, but them fucking feet are going 1,000 miles an hour and you never see it, right? That's the mentality that I want the younger generation to understand is, we've talked about it multiple times with being a pilot in command, of faking it till you make it to a certain extent, or just having that, I can't even call it arrogance, just that air about you that shows that confidence, even if damn good and well you're scared to fucking death. You will not see it here. You see on my face many things, but being panicked is usually not one of them. It's almost the reverse. And I get told, and I've been told as of even yesterday, that my attitude comes across as lackadaisical and not caring in my world of business and otherwise. And I'm told people every time they bring it up, I'm okay with that. Why? Because nobody's fucking shooting at me. Nobody's yelling at me. Nobody's doing the things that are actually going to impact me on a level of which I need to worry about anymore. So yeah, we got something that's going on at work. We got something going on in family, or we got some, all of it is manageable. That's the one thing that I've learned after reaching that point is it's all manageable. It's a matter of how big a bites you take to be able to digest it. If you take a bite of something and it's too fucking big, it's okay to spit a little bit out and recognize that, and take your licks for being that jackass that overindulged, and now you had to back up a little bit. Eat your humble pie, right? Understand that, yeah, you're going to catch some hell for it, but guess what? It's better to catch a little hell right then and move on and do better than it is to think, oh yeah, I'll hide it. And then when it does explode, it fucking goes everywhere. And nobody's immune to it, right? So that's not fair to people that aren't even part of that, So really take it in and understand it's okay to struggle. It's okay to not feel okay. And the next step is, what do you do with that? You fucking adapt, you overcome, and you look at life as for what it is. It's a journey. It's something that I believe we should all be looking to have some sort of fun in anything we do. I tell people all the time, if you're not having fun, I don't care if you're digging a ditch or doing brain surgery or winning the lottery. If you're not having fun while you're doing it, why the fuck are you even bother? Life's too short to sit around being miserable and pissed off.
Yeah, man. What was one of the happiest moments in your military career? You put here too many to list, but there has to be one thing that stands out. There has to be one thing.
Being a dad. If it's
being
life,
a dad's
being
cool
a dad.
as fuck, man. I love being a dad.
And I give tribute to my wife on that, because the early years I was deployed 3 times. So when my kids were early on in life, my wife was their rock, when I was gone, and helped them get to where they are today. And at the end of the day, I have a 17-year-old or a 19-year-old son that's getting ready to enroll at community college for automotives today. I have a 16-year-old daughter that's dual enrolled in college doing high school in cosmetology. She'll graduate at 17 years old with a associates, as well as, if everything goes right, they'll let her take her certification test as well, and she'll graduate at 17 years old and be rocking and rolling in life. And from the career side, that's amazing. From the dad side, that it means shit, because what really I care about is I've got 2 great fucking humans that here in about, I hope, 5 to 10 years, I'll be able to say that I got 2 phenomenal friends that are going through life their way and embracing life, and not just going through the 9 to 5. I've got to get a job. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. you only bring on the burden of which I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I want people to understand, especially young people, you're not obligated to shit. That's not to say don't get out there and work your ass off. Absolutely. But it boils down to, what do you take on? What debt and responsibility do you take on? When you take that on, you fucking take it on, you own it, and you make it the best that you can. Not everybody needs or wants to have high-end stuff or long-standing bills and debt and all that. I don't encourage it. I think it's fucking awful. If I'd have known now known then what I know now, and had enough sense to fucking listen, it'd have been a game changer, right? But it's part of being young, is figuring some of the shit out on your own and realizing it's okay to stumble.
Young and dumb. We all went through it.
Hell, I'm still old and dumb, so we're getting there slowly but surely. But yeah, I would say life-wise, it would be my kids. As far as the military overall, I would say that just being able to do the medevac mission for as long as I did, and the impact that potentially had for generations to come, it's pretty cool.
I already told you, a hero of mine, brother. What key lessons or takeaway do you hope listeners will gain from your story?
Resilience is key. Period.
Yeah.
You don't lose until you give up.
Come on,
you don't
now.
fail until you give up. You can fall, you can stumble, you can fucking trip, you can land on your face. I've done it many times. But it's, what do you do whenever you hit that spot and you stand the fuck back up? What do you do then? Resilience is the key.
Motivate me today on this whatever day it is, damn Thursday, get me motivated out here. Let's go, Josh. Shit. What's your biggest regret in life?
Not being a better husband.
You want to know the greatest thing about that, John? You still have a lot of time to be a fucking outstanding husband, right? Yeah, so
for a fact. That is for sure. And I don't want that taken the wrong way. You know, everybody can do better. And if I had to pick an area that I want to truly do better and ensure that I do right, is that, right? Because that is my partner in life. That's my rock. That's my all at the end of the day. And together we're raising two phenomenal human beings, or on track to raise two phenomenal human beings. And I damn sure couldn't have done it without her. And I wouldn't want to. Any day that goes by, I'm not good at it, but I truly strive to be better than I was the day before. And that goes across the board. But again, there's days where you stumble. There's days where you ain't as good as you were the day before, or worse than you were the day before. But again, it's about starting again, and really not living by the fact that, oh yeah, I screwed up. Oh, I screwed up again. Oh, I screwed up again. That's not okay. Screwing up is okay. Continue to screw up on the same shit is not. You know, we should all strive, and myself included, strive to do better. And
you know, I want to commend you, because you are a true role model for a lot of men out there. You know, there's a lot of cynicism in the world right now, and, you know, all this stuff with men and women, that we don't need each other and we don't need that. But you're here showing the world that, you know, I do need my wife, and she is my rock and my foundation. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And I think it takes a true man to show how much he loves his family, his wife, loves himself, right? And that's something that's very commendable. And I hope the audience will see this, that Jon King is sitting here showing you that throughout everything he's been through in life, he still knows fundamentally what are the greatest things in his life, and that's family, his wife, his children, and continue to be a great father and a man. I mean, that's very outstanding of you. What legacy do you want to leave behind for your family, your friends and family?
Just be happy. There's enough shit in this world. There's enough bad. There ain't no reason to perpetuate it. There ain't no reason to fucking talk about it or brag about it. I want them to, one, obviously be proud. That's kind of the given that everybody can go to. But for me, I truly want them to celebrate their lives and what they bring to the table, and where they're able to find happiness. And Will and I'll be a big reason of why they're happy. If I have my way, you know, so.
Remember this, man. A lot of people count on you and love you. Like, And that's one thing I'm trying to tell men. I'm beating it into their brains. Like, listen, there's a whole community out there that needs your ass, that loves you. You have to be the man that you have to be the best version of yourself, right?
That's the best way to put it. Because to me, it's not, and I 100% agree on the man thing. Like right now, and we'll catch flack for this, I'm sure, for some folks, but at the end of the day, we're all different. Guys are different than girls, period. There's no arguing that, right? So I don't care what scenario you're in, whatever partner you choose in life, be the best version of you, just like you said. That's the best way that I could possibly think to articulate that. Be the best you for the individual that you're with and the people that you call family. Because as you know, in the military, we have a thing called chosen family, right? We outside the military, you hear family and you think blood. After being in the military and going through that culture, you quickly understand that blood doesn't mean shit in the fact of what family actually means, right? And when we talk about family, it's the people that are there and support you and believe in you and drive you to be that better person. If you're around individuals that are negative and drive that negativity and just hate, like that ain't family. Like, period. Like that's not healthy. It's not productive. It's just not good. So being able to have that chosen family, as I would call it, where they surround you, they support you, they see your vision, they see your drive, they see your passion, they see you want to succeed, and they're there for it. You know what I mean? Like you said, if you called me tomorrow and you needed something, if I had the means and the ability to do it, I would be there. If I don't, I'm going to figure out a fucking way to ensure that I am represented by whatever I can give to you in your need, in that sense. And I think that's something that we definitely carry from our military
That's right.
upbringing, for lack of better words. And then
Yeah, and just know it's reciprocated, man. You ever need something from me, I'm coming. Shit, I'm pack up the ram and we're coming. All right. It's the one thing. Before I ask you that question, what are you currently doing? You retired CW3, living a good life. Where are you currently living?
Just north of Huntsville. We decided to land down here. We kind of figured out we don't want to move to Omaha because it's hot or cold. We didn't want to go to Arkansas because the job options were slim. So it was, all right, where do we go? Well, we had a couple of friends that were retiring out and had settled down in this area, and the cost of living was low. The job opportunities were high. So let's give Huntsville a shot. So we packed up and moved out of Fort Campbell, and I ended up going through what they call the MSSA program, Microsoft Software and Systems Academy, as part of my transition, where I learned networking fundamentals, and then ultimately learn to network and grow my champions, if you will, on the civilian side, and ultimately landed with a small company here in Huntsville when I retired. When I say small, I like to joke and say that I was their first ass in seat doing Army acquisitions under their company name. Helped them grow over the next 3.5, 4 years to 23 employees total under their umbrella. Went from doing Army acquisitions to short order to doing foreign military sales under the same customer and company. Did that for about 3.5 years, grew that team to about 7 to 9 folks at any given time. And then ultimately led me to my current job, where I've been in February, will be 4 years, which is I work for Microsoft as a customer success account manager as my day job. And then, when you start talking of what I do, that's my day job. That's my 9 to 5. That's what allows me to do things like this from time to time during the day, is having that freedom to maneuver and really make an impact, hopefully, for others as part of that. But then you start getting into my extracurriculars, as we'll call them. And let me back up. So a little over 2 years ago, what stemmed all this is what I'm about to go into is all just been from the last little over 2 years. So my father-in-law that I mentioned earlier ended up losing him to cancer. And so I lost one of my greatest mentors after 20-something plus years. About 3 months later, in short succession, and when I say short succession, it was a 3-day period, I lost my brother to cancer, my oldest brother to cancer, lost my uncle to suicide the next day to his health issues. And then the third day is when we lost the 9 service members over Fort Campbell, Kentucky, in the aircraft accident for the medevac. That all happened in very short order, and it sparked something in me of there's got to be more. There's got to be a better way. There's just so many questions I had, especially being the former safety officer for that company and seeing that accident. And so out of that accident, I started looking and seeing the why. Why would that happen? And it's sad in the fact that the analogy I give is, if you can imagine two cars on the interstate, single lane, barriers either side for 10-mile stretch, curves along the way while it's raining at night, one headlight out. I want them to do 90 miles an hour, stay a foot and a half apart. And in one car, I've got a 15-year-old being told by a 16-year-old, being told by a 21-year-old in the backseat, telling the 16-year-old how to drive, or teach the 15-year-old how to drive. And then the other car, I've got a 17-year, 18-year-old. Scenario, everything's legal. They're all doing exactly what they're qualified to do. Problem is, you just heard the scenario. Like, I would have to put very skilled individuals to make that scenario survivable, first off. But now I'm doing it with the very basic qualified people. Well, one, the odds of something going bad are astronomical. And when they do, they're atrocious, as you saw with the two aircraft. So my mindset was, how do we fix that? How do we change that? And for me, it came down to mentorship. If we could embed mentors that are, in my example, 3 to 5 years removed from the military, 5 years being the absolute max, that they're able to pair with commanders, maintenance test pilots, safety officers, tactical officers, fill in the blank, right? And pair at that level, that now that individual has a mentor that they can pair with that has the same intent as the commander above them. So there is no change there. It's just a lateral person that they can engage with, that they're not impacting their career by asking potentially what I'll classify as dumb questions, that they're fearful of what the answer might be. They're able to engage and learn in a non-threatening manner, or have that person to bounce things off of from that perspective. And then when you relate it even further to the next step that I walk through, is taking those same individuals and say we do it just strictly in aviation. And we take that individual that's 3 to 5 years removed, that still has the skills, knowledge, and experience to fly that mission, but may not have the body anymore to be able to do it. We have technology today that I could sit and put a damn headset on my head right here in Huntsville, Alabama, and I could fly a mission with a young airman out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and do all the training and the knowledge transfer to them of how to fly that mission and how to do these things, and never leave my seat here in Huntsville. And yet that knowledge and that experience gets transferred, and so that they're able to gain and grow at a faster rate, and we're able to be more successful in those careers because we have that additional experience added in. And again, it's a level of partnership and peer relationship is the way that I kind of see it, to help them grow and be better individuals within their own realms. And for me, it doesn't stop with Army aviation. You can take and do that. You look across tradesmen and plumbers and electricians, and they have journeymen that do exactly that in a sense, transfer to any job or role that you either get aged out of, or you have a limited time on. When you talk about the military and it's a 20-year career and you're done, what happens to that knowledge after the 20 years? It's going away at an exponential rate. So, well, you can either stop loss. Well, that's going to piss people off, and you're going to get your knowledge, but it's not going to be a good one because people don't already be there. You can do a recall. Well, that's going to piss people off. Yeah, you'll get your information, but that's no good. So if you bring them back in the voluntary basis where they're able to bring and share that knowledge freely, to me, that's a vision that can happen and be very successful, and get that knowledge back to the military that it's truly needed in from that perspective. So that idea sparked into what I started, Veteran Reach Back Group, which is a S Corp that I do a few different things under. And the initial thought was, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I just knew I needed to do something. So started Veteran Reach Back Group, where we do combat-related special compensation consulting, because I taught myself a lot once I retired about that, and get people past the fear of what it means when you read the thing and, oh, you got to waive some of or all of your retirement. Well, people don't want to give up their money. Well, you're not. Like in reality, you're getting more money, but every scenario is different. So kind of walking people through that. And then under that, I said, I got to have a different outlet. You know, when we talked about growing up, I was always the kid in art. And, you know, my senior year, I think I had 5 art classes, band, and then the science and the math. So getting back to that creative side. So I come up with Real Apparel Company, which is RAC for short. My tagline is because who doesn't like a nice rack? And I love it because it gets that chuckle. And the fun side of that was when I came up with that, I was actually designing a deer shirt with a big old buck on the back of it. And my neighbor had just got a tattoo of a pool rack because he's a pool player on his arm. And he was standing there. I was like, yeah, who don't like a nice rack? Because it applies to both of those. It applies to a clothing rack. When you look at your rack of clothes, you're like, who don't like a nice rack? And then obviously the subtle sexual connotation that's tied in there as well that gets most people to chuckle when they first hear it. But what that did is it taught me some things leveraging technology to do what I call micro projects. So now in between like meetings like this, where I got 5 or 10 minutes, I'll jump over and leverage technology to come up and create different image ideas. And if we, but I just I'll turn around just so you kind of see the
back. It looks good, man.
Just random stuff that I create and throw out there, and I really do it more for me. If it sells, it sells. It's cool, but it's for me to be able to have shit that I enjoy wearing while also being able to be creative. Taking that into account, I said, hey, how can I do more for others with this? And so I approached one business lady and was getting her feedback and said, hey, I've got this crazy concept. What do you think? She said, well, I love the idea, but I hate the tag with the real apparel that you have. She's like, it's not very professional. It doesn't come across clean. It just doesn't fit to what your idea is. So I pivoted. And so I still do Real Apparel Company for me, but then I do P&P Design, where I work with small businesses, boosters, and nonprofits to take the things that I learned doing the rack stuff and leverage it for them. So basically I sit down, say you as a small business owner, if you have your own images, awesome. We sit down and we build you an e-collection or e-commerce store under our collection that you pick your items, you pick your profit margin. I build the e-commerce store. I do a great write-up for you. And then I turn you loose with a couple of QR codes. One will take people directly to your collection. The other one will take them to the bigger collection that shows all the people under that. And the thought is, if you post both of them, one, people can go directly to your stuff, but then the other one, people may see other images and shirts or designs and things from other companies and other businesses that they think is cool. So you get that cross collaboration of community sales in this sense, right? When you talk about boosters and nonprofits with the same idea and concept, they don't have a lot of money. You know, when you're first starting out or you're doing those type of things, you're always looking to fundraise for different things. So instead of a school or a booster having to do a barbecue butt sale that everybody and their brother's doing, and you can only buy so many barbecue butts from the kids around your house, now you're able to actually have customized t-shirts, shorts, candles, books, puzzles, blankets, fill in the blank. The options are pretty limitless. But you're able to do that and have custom designed stuff specifically for you and your area. So like for the baseball team, I have shirts that are designed with Trojans on the back playing baseball and different baseball positions. And then the athletic association, I have ones for football and volleyball for my brother's barbecue competition team that he just got 10th overall out of 444 teams at the American National Rural Barbecue Competition, doing stuff like that. And for them, in that one, it's a weird business model because I don't charge anything for that. I set it all up and then turn you loose with your QR code. And the way that I make my money is, as a business owner, you set your profit margin. So if you say, hey, I want to make $3 on my shirts, cool. Somebody else wants to make $7, I don't care. Once a month, I scrub your sales for that collection and I send you a check for roughly 90% of the profit of whatever you set. So say you sell $100 in stuff, I send you a check for roughly $85, $87 based on that. Cause I keep 10% and then I share the wealth of the fees. So the more people I add to the collection, the lower the fees are. But ultimately It gives them an opportunity to sell stuff without having to do bulk orders, not having to collect a bunch of money from 10, 15 different parents to go do an order for t-shirts and stuff like that. They literally give the QR code to their parents. Their parents order the shirts and anything else that they want. They send it to their friends, their family. They can all order and have it direct shipped to them at their door, so they don't have to go pick it up. There's no fuss, there's no headache, nothing like that. So it's just a different mindset and a way to do something for those individuals in those groups that people wouldn't generally do. You're not going to do something for free and then also give them 90% of the profit of which I could have just made money off of, but for me, I'm a huge Shark Tank fan. So my thought is, Kevin O'Leary, when he talks about taking 10% of a watermelon over 90% of a grape, I'm the motherfucker. I don't just that. I want to grow the watermelon patch, and I want to have 10% of all the watermelons from that perspective. But in the same hand, I'm very proud of the watermelon patch that I built, because it's not just about getting that 10%. It's about truly growing a phenomenal watermelon patch and seeing your watermelons go out and be successful in that scenario.
And you do this with businesses as well, right?
Yeah, businesses, nonprofits, boosters, one-offs. If you're sitting around and you're drinking one night and you're like, man, I got this crazy idea about this design. Cool, let's get together. We'll thumb out some stuff.
And I just want to clear this up for the audience, I want to just make it real clear. You give me that QR code, I give it to my people. My people start buying things. You send it to them, right? Yeah, drop ship.
So it's all drop ship, right? So I don't touch any of it. I basically do the e-commerce store. I do the graphics design if they don't have their own images, and I manage their store. It is really what it boils down to when you break it down. But the way that I really, my phrasing is, I save people money, I make them money, and my favorite is I give them their time back. When you look at it,
listen, I'm gonna make sure. Number one, I'm gonna start working with you. Number two, because you could help me out with some things right now. With Heroes Have Wings, like getting merch out there, right? That's number one. Number two, there's a lot of business people that I know right now that are looking for something that you do. So this is another reason why I'm creating this platform, because you got business owner here, business owner you, right? We get together, we start networking, and then we start growing this watermelon patch together, whatever it is, right? We just start like grown and grown. But man, that's a good ass idea. Yeah. So you got your regular job, it's PMP, right? You got rack. And what else you got?
So I've got a few, right? Told you I had a 19-year-old son. I had the opportunity. Neighbor said, hey, I've got this bounce house business. You want it? I was like, sounds great. My son's turning 19, don't really have a direction. This would be great for him to go out and set on his own path. And so I bought a small bounce house water slide business here locally that we tinker around with. And then ideally in the spring, we'll really ramp it up because we bought it right before winter, which is a horrible time to do that. But knowing it was going to give me a little runway to build up the success of that and really hit it hard at the spring, that's the goal there. And then our latest adventure is Goose's Bar and Grill in Papillion, Nebraska, which about 3 months ago, we had the opportunity. We've been spitballing the idea about doing something down here, and one of the opportunities fell through due to environmentals on the place that we were looking to purchase. It was a former gas station.
Plus the build out for that would have just been astronomical for you due to the changing a gas station into a restaurant. It would have been, I already know. I get it, bro, as a business owner.
Yeah. Yeah, it was going to be like upwards of $250,000 potentially before we ever cracked a dollar on remodel. That was just to get it gas station port taken care of and all the stuff checked off that we had done our due diligence. So 20 years down the road, we didn't have somebody suing us for all their cow lineage dying on us. So yeah, we passed on that opportunity. Ended up pitching our idea to a building owner in Papillion, along with 5 or 6 other groups, and they liked our idea. So I leveraged everything I had and plus more, and threw everything that we have, plus the kitchen sink added up there, and got it fully gutted and remodeled. It went from my mindset of, I'll do this and borrow this amount, and it's a 35 years plus established business. Come to find out that's been there all told like 50, 60 years. So in my brain, I'm like, come in here, do some stuff and make it great. Of course, with all great things come troubles. So as soon as we cracked the drop ceiling, where I was like, yeah, let's pull this drop ceiling out. We'll do the open. It would be good. As soon as we cracked that, all electrical had to be brought up to code. So they had to gut the entire building of all electrical. And if you can imagine, in a building, it's not cheap. It's
John. So you know, when I moved Fit Rev, same exact thing. Drop ceiling. I want to get rid of this. I want to open it. As soon as I did that, damn, $10,000 in lights. I'm like, what? But I get it. I think young entrepreneurs need to know that, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of unseen costs that it's gonna start hitting you when you're moving along in your projects, but don't let that keep you from moving along.
Absolutely. You gotta, the one thing I would say on this one was the financial side of it. Like, I was underprepared for the hurdles that I've had to jump to one, get the doors open, but then now that we got the doors open and we're starting to figure a few things out, you know, the one thing I would ask the public, anybody that's listening to this motherfucker, is understand, go out and support small businesses. And when you do, understand that they don't have it all figured out. They're not a corporation that's done this a million fucking times. There's a reason McDonald's is successful. It's not because it's great fucking food. It's because it's consistent. That's why fast food works. It's because it's consistent. It doesn't matter where you go in the United States. It's the same shitty hamburger. We're not that, right? As a small business, we're not that. We're custom. We're high quality as best we can be. We're going to stumble. We're going to have hurdles, but it's what we do when we get up, right? And I really want people to understand that when you go out and spend your hard-earned money, look at where the fuck you're spending it and have your reasonable expectations when you go in there. But that said, the community of which we decided to put our establishment, one, we have a phenomenal GM, Wendy Sub, that has been knocking it out of the park from day one and beyond. But then the community support has been huge. Like the turnout and the people and the support that we've had. We've had our hurdles with people having bad experiences off the first week that we were open, and that's to be expected. You know, at the end of the day, the irony of that one is the 3 comments that we got that were negative on like slow food or whatever. I was in the kitchen. So I get to tell my kitchen crew, I'm like, well, at least you're catching it from the top down. And I said, at least you know that the 3 reviews that we got that were shitty is because I was in the kitchen. That said, it was the 3 busiest nights we had. Opening night, our first night with alcohol, and then like one morning time where I got thrown in and needed to cook because we didn't have somebody show up.
And I want to add to that, being a small business owner myself, the biggest thing I think people need to give us that grace, man, that we are working very hard to provide you a great product. And I just want people to give people understanding, right? I think our society would be a better place if we just try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes for a moment instead of just going all out. I think social media, internet has given people a reckless abandonment for a voice to just shit all over people without even understanding the whole situation. And I've dealt with it being a gym owner for 6+ years. You're dealing with it. And a lot of my constituents that own small businesses, it's a common thing. And we're just asking, if you could go to big corporate stores, I'm not going to mention any, and they treat you like trash for customer service all day and you continue to go back, just think about that when you're dealing with a small business, that we're trying to make sure your experience is great here. And if we make one mistake, understand it's not because we're doing it on purpose. It's just maybe we did miss something because we're human.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have it all figured out, right? You know what I mean? When you talk about big corps, and they got full-on teams that are taking care of stuff for them, that are putting out fires on a regular. That's their day job, is putting out fires for stuff. We don't have that. You know, we're figuring it out on the way. Like you've heard from me, like all the stuff that I've got going beyond my just day job stuff. And then the last one that I'll mention of stuff that I got going on is probably one of my proudest is the Eagle Rising Foundation, which I founded right along the same time frame of that, which is my nonprofit, where we do a couple of things. And I say we, it's me. I am currently Eagle Rising Foundation. So if you're bored and want to be part of it, I'd love to have you come out and support. And that goes for your listeners as well. I don't have it all figured out. I'm going as best I can with it. But that said, We do a few things where locally, last year for April, I sponsored a 3/4 size Vietnam memorial wall, traveling memorial wall out of Texas, and got them to the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in front of Talladega for the race. They brought 36 additional panels for a total of 70,000 plus names that were represented of the fallen since Vietnam. Got to humbly watch as people got to visit and pay their respects in a way that they might not have otherwise been able to do it. And to me, that was worth every hassle and headache and battle I had to get it there. We do a haunted trail on our property that we've been going. I've been doing it 7 years now. 4 have been open to the public, where it started out me just wanting to scare the kids during our my wife's Halloween party to my son was in baseball. We're always looking for fundraisers. And I was like, why the hell not? Like, let's see what we can do. So I started building out my backside of my property. And the last 3 years, we've pushed and raised almost $20,000 between the local donations and the Microsoft match for their program. And this year we opened it up to the Meridianville Athletic Association. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to have them in again next year and really have them show out and be a part of that program. And if I have my way, I want to have every day in October full with different organizations that come out and work the trail and earn money for their organizations, because the legwork's already done. I've already got the thing built up by that point and done the add-ons that I'm going to do. So it's nothing more to have other workers come in and be the character actors that are scaring the individuals that are coming through. And I think this year we're going to do it slightly different. And it's taken a lot for me to do this. Is we're going to charge this coming year. And it's something we've never done. It's always been donation based. But we're at a level now that I feel confident that we can charge a small fee and take donations and raise more money than just getting people in that are the donation base. And as fucked up as this sounds, I think it's going to actually drive more focus and people to us because we do charge, because it gives that level of, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, it was skin in the game, but it also gives it that it's not just some mom and pop shop thing. You know what I mean? People see it when they see free, they think chinky and cheap and poorly done. That's not us anymore. Like, we surpassed that a couple of years ago, where I've got buildings on the property that are made out. I build construction bridges and suspension bridges and tunnels and mazes and all sorts of stuff on the backside of my property as part of this. So that's one shift that we're going to do next year that I'm cautiously optimistic that it'll pay dividends from that perspective. And then after the first of the year, we're going to launch, for anybody that checks out the website, you'll see our programs that I have identified. There's 10 different programs. We're going to start with one. And then as I grow out the team and the support, we'll start adding on and open up the other ones. But the 10 different programs, as I go through a few of them, and then I'll give examples on a couple of them, but there's pitmasters, where pitmaster proteges. So the example there is, I know about barbecue, or my brother knows about barbecue, and we want to share our knowledge. We come in, we sign up. We then are able to select from a calendar to pick times that work for us for a 15-minute virtual meet and greet. We can pick 1, 2, unlimited, however many we want to support with. At that point, we're done. Mentee comes along, they want to learn about barbecue, so they sign up. At that point, they get to see that calendar where all these mentors have signed up. They pick the virtual time that works for them to do that virtual meet and greet. Once everything that's done and the mentor says, yep, we're vibing, we're going to move forward. At that point, we will send them a small package to the mentor and the mentee to do that mentorship session. In the case of barbecue, it could be a rack of ribs, a pork butt, the spices, the full, the gloves, the basic stuff that you would need to do that mentorship session. All I'm asking in return is that they record the session, whether it's through their iPhone, their iPad, or their Android, or their big fancy recording setup. I don't care. What I want is them to enjoy the mentorship session and provide that data back to us, so that when I get it, I can turn it over to my smart folks, ideally folks like you that have got connections to do the editing and things like that, to really put forth a good video that we could drop on our YouTube channel so that others can come experience and learn without being fully vested yet. They can check out a small clip and see which mentor might fit to them, whether it's personality or style or whatever. And then really drive that attention back to the program from that perspective. How I intend to fund it is through my entrepreneurial program that, in my world, my brain, and my vision, I'll basically target's a shitty word, but I think you get it, in veterans that have the entrepreneurial spirit. They're about a year out from transition, whether that's transition after their short term or their 20+ year career, so that we establish a lead mentor in my brain 4 subs that guide them and mentor them through their business process, so that when they're at their transition point, they're able to launch their business, whether that's virtually or brick and mortar, whatever the case may be. At that point, they stay with the program an additional year with those said mentors that walk them through that first year, and they have reached back to our entire network of mentors to ensure that they're successful. Once that year mark hits, they will then give back in one of 3 ways based off a handshake at the very beginning, that they'll either give a percentage of business ownership. That way we can have residual income as they're successful. We're able to feed back to our smaller programs. There'll be a business assessment done to business value. So we'll say, hey, based on your start, this is where we expect you to be in a year. This is a percentage of that we expect payback into the program. All right, cool. You're at that. Awesome. You're above that, even better. If you're below that, all right, we're going to do a change of how much you would give back. It may only be 80% of that original estimated value. The intent isn't to break any company that we're sending out there to be successful. The intent is to take, again, a little bit to subsidize our smaller programs. And then the other be sweat equity. So we evaluate that your business will be at this amount. We expect this many hours of sweat equity back as a mentor to get our value back out across the other platforms that we're going to have in place. And the thought there is, if I can do that and be successful, I don't need many businesses to be successful in that rate to be able to fund the smaller pieces. And the thought there is, I don't have to beg, borrow, and steal every time I turn around to get more funding from smaller programs. We have it built in-house to be able to make teams successful. And my thought is to build the initial package, much like the warrant package, that'll weed out about 80% of the what-ifers, of the people that just have curiosity and have a slight interest in being an entrepreneur, but they don't have that drive and determination that it's going to take to be a true entrepreneur, and do it that way. And then ultimately, a third one that I'll get into that you may kind of chuckle at is our Tech Elders program. And there I take to expect and connect business owners and high level career individuals that have influence in their business, in their arena, and pair them with junior individuals or individuals that may not be junior in age, but junior in experience to them in their particular roles, while in the same hand taking those individuals that are very smart in tech and how to make things more efficient and effective by leveraging tech and pairing them with those senior individuals to go into these companies and say, all right, teach me what you know about owning and running a company as a junior person coming up, and I will help you be more efficient, effective, and make more money based on the knowledge that I have in these areas, and do that collaborative effort in that program. Then you get into the artisan, the wordsmithing, the holistic human, the wellness one, where you start talking and get back into that mentorship to vogue crafts, things that are long gone. Being able to sew and patch your own clothes. Is it a necessity now? No. But is it something that very quickly could become a thing again? Absolutely. Small things, tending the earth and growing your own garden. I don't know how many folks out there have actually tried to grow anything. It ain't fucking easy. Even stuff that's called a weed ain't always growing like a weed. And so, being able to pass on those skills and that knowledge and experience at a level that's not pressurized and no expectations, and the people that come there are there because they want to be there. And so that's the programs that we're going to start after the first of the year. I'm going to start after the first of the year and really start pushing and growing and getting my mentorship base and getting a few mentees in and really start the ball rolling.
Two things. One is if you need mentors, let me know, especially for the entrepreneur thing. Hit me up. Okay. I'll
Oh,
be on board
100%.
with that. I'd love to
100%.
help you out with that project. I got a lot of other entrepreneurs that'll be interested in wells. So just network, hit me up, man. I'll definitely help you with that. Second thing, how could people find Jon? Like, people are listening to the program right now. What's the simplest way to find you to inquire about all the things that you just talked about?
Probably LinkedIn is the go-to for the professional side of the house. That's your easiest going to find me there. I don't do a whole lot on Facebook on the personal side of the house. I do more of that through my businesses, so if you're looking directly to contact and get with me, your best bet's just to go through LinkedIn, or reach out to you, Jason.
Yeah. What's the best way for us to find your companies?
Websites, really. I would say the easiest way is to either Bing or Google, and you can look up Real Apparel Company, Shopify, PMP Design, Shopify. If you put those, I should be one of the first ones that pop up under those two. EagleRisingFoundation.com is the website for Eagle Rising. I'm learning and growing, so everything that you see under my websites, under my Facebook, or under my Shopify is all stuff that I've self-taught. So if you're a web designer out there and you're looking at my stuff and you're like, this is fucking awful, this dude's atrocious, and he could do so much better, I agree, I probably could. So if you're willing to help, step up and don't hit me with a big ass price. But yeah, at the end of the day, everything that they'll see is stuff that I've put together and self-taught. So again, it goes back to that resiliency that we talked about earlier, and really that drive and determination to get out there and do it. Don't sit around and have people tell you about how life could have been.
That's right. Show people how you could be. Don't talk about it. In wrapping up, what's the one thing you would tell the younger Jon King if you had to go back and tell him? What's the one thing you tell him?
It's worth it.
With you being so busy, what do you do as a de-stressor?
I smoke weed.
Love it. It's funny. A lot of you guys do that, man.
I joke, man. I grew up around it. I saw it done a lot. I never did it in the military. Never did it after my career. Finally got to the position that it's not a thing. I've seen the benefits of it. I've seen the downsides of it. At the end of the day, it's all about moderation. And with anything, you can get lost within your own moderation. My wife and I have gone back and forth on my usage of what I perceive as okay versus not. You go from you live in a state where it's not legal. All right, cool. So I won't do it. Well, all of a sudden there's this other thing that's very similar that's now legal. Okay, so then I'll just do that, but then you still have the repercussions of, well, is that like we just had a conversation, is it like a cigarette or is it like a beer? Well, you're not doing good if you're day drinking. Like, we all know the effects of alcohol and how it impacts you and how it can negatively turn very fast. Smoking a cigarette, yes, it still chemically alters your body and your mindset to a certain extent, but it's not in the same level or impact as alcohol. So now when we're talking marijuana in this instance, or Delta 8 or Delta 10 or THC or HAC or any one of the other 1,000 chemicals that are labeled under the marijuana plant, each one of them have different impact and different things that they do to the human body. So every one of them could potentially be different. So from that aspect, it is a little more up in the air on how your body's going to react to it. When you talk about the sativa versus the indica and the knowledge, and it's crazy. I'll sit here and babble about it for hours just because I'm a nerd like that, and it intrigues me. When you talk about the fact that it's been around as long as it has, and there's proven medical benefits to it in certain areas and things like that. And again, I don't condone it for anybody, and I don't promote it for anybody. Everybody's got to find their own way. Had I done things differently, I probably would have never started. That said, that's just because I smoked for a long time and it's not good. Like, it's not good for your body at the end of the day when you're talking about inhaling stuff and ingesting things of any sort of anything out of moderation, food included, from that perspective. But again, everybody's got to find their own out And I encourage people to do that. Like I said, for me, for really where I enjoy doing is geeking out over doing my own designs and being creative again. And I was always semi joking about the weed stuff. But yeah, really just find your thing, find the thing that you're going to be able to start small and be passionate about and get that outlet. And then from there, just take and grow it and do your own thing.
All right, John, it's been a great pleasure being with you today. Man, I got to learn a lot about you. I want to tell you, great job bouncing back from retiring from the Army, dealing with your mental health, beginning all these companies, being a great father, and just staying busy. Remember, reach out. I want to really get involved in these projects, especially the mentoring thing. I think a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. They think it's easy until they start. And like you said, when shit starts going wrong, and then you're like, man, what's going on? So I would love to be a mentor, and I would just love to help you in any aspect that I can to help you be successful and help your visions come true, man. You got any final words for the audience?
Dude, I love the fact that you have gone out and done your thing and are bringing something positive to the community that isn't out there already, and bringing guys like me back in and getting our 2 cents and seeing where we fucked up along the way, and also just being able to collaborate and talk again with old friends and colleagues to be able to see where we're each at. And, you know, hearing some of the names that you rattled off throughout our conversation, there ain't one of them that you mentioned that I didn't have some sort of smile or smirk or a story in the back of my head about them, and the great things that we were able to do together as a team and as peers and as we move through life. And I think that's one of the things that we do in the military very well, especially, you know, as you transition from one base to another and retirement and things like that. You're able to still communicate and collaborate and sit down with folks after years of not seeing them, talk to them, and be able to pick up and have that camaraderie and have a starting point in a base. And I think that's lost on a lot of people outside of the military, is they don't have that. You know, they don't have that differentiation of things when they grow up in the same spot and they never leave the town that they grew up in, and they don't see anything outside of that. They see that that's the only view that there is, and in reality, it's not. You know, we've all seen that. We've all seen the differences across the world. And I think for a lot of us, it brings us back to be, in our own right, a little more humble in what we've been blessed to be able to build and put forth and do. Because there's a lot of people in this world that don't have that even opportunity, you know, given that they are driven like we are, and they're passionate like we are, and they're stubborn like we are, and they have all the traits of a great entrepreneur or just individual. You know, it's not always easy, and that's the thing. Like, you've got to keep going, push and be resilient. One of the things I've told my kids growing up is never tell yourself no. I also say never accept the first no you get. And the reason behind that is because the first no you usually get, one, if you tell yourself no, it's always no. So if you automatically get rid of that, you got a 50-50 shot. Well, fuck, I'll take those odds in Vegas all day long. And then you tack on, you don't take the first no. And usually it's because one of a few reasons. The person either isn't the right individual to give the answer that is needed. They're scared because, again, they don't know the information or know what to truly say the yes for. They're lazy, or they just don't know enough, you know. So taking that into consideration and really driving forward with, all right, you gave me a no, but why? What's the no? Why is the no? I've given, and that's the thing people got to remember. You can't just roll up with a half-cocked fucking idea and expect to get a yes. You've got to put in your due diligence. You've got to put in your effort. And yeah, you're not always going to have the full proper solution, but it at least shows that you've come forward with some sort of thought on why you're bringing the solution to the particular problem that you raised from that aspect. And the last one I'll leave you with is my 4 F's. If it don't affect your family, your future, or your finances, don't fucking worry about it. Stay in your lane, stay in your world, do what's right by you and your people, and strive to be the best version of you that you can be. Don't dwell in other people's drama. Don't dwell in other people's fucking misery. Don't dwell in their sorrow. embrace them, get them on a right headspace, and y'all succeed as a team.
And John, that is a wonderful way to close out this segment of Heroes Have Wings. Everyone, if you mind your business just a little bit, you'll get way further in life. I mean, just a little bit. Mind your business just a little bit. Worry about what you have going on in life. It'll take you far in life. Brother, I appreciate you, man. I love you. I hope I get to see you soon. Like I said, really, I'm serious about it. Hit me up for the mentoring thing. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure I see you grow and be successful. Also, I'm going to reach out to you for your PMP idea too, because you could help me with a lot of stuff and visions I have with Heroes Have Wings. Remember this.
I love it, dude.
You are a true American hero. You are an American badass. I'm glad to call you friend, and I'm glad to know you. And hey, thank you for supporting me. Because like you said, there have been a few people that have told me no, and I understand it. They got their own things going on. But like you said, as long as we don't take that first no, keep pushing forward. You have a bright future ahead. And once again, thank you. We're out on Heroes Have Wings. You guys catch us on the next segment, and have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in to Heroes Have Wings, where we honor the extraordinary stories of grit, sacrifice, and resilience. Remember, every hero's journey starts with a single step, so take yours today. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep pushing limits, breaking barriers, and living your truth. I'm your host, Jason Santiago, and this is Heroes Have Wings, where legends rise.